Chapter 662, High-Grade Celestial Spirit Water, 3, Su Luo. Things have already reached this stage, and you still want to quibble? If it wasn't for you insisting on being with His Highness Prince Jean, that hugely offended the Jade Lakesley family, then why would they take action against our Su Manor? You brought this disaster to Su Manor, and yet you still won't admit to it? Su Zian raised his hand, wishing he could slap her. However, fortunately, he still had a bit of reasoning left. Knowing that Su Luo's strength was out of the ordinary, only then did he stiffly restrain his hand. Su Luo also frowned. What does honorable father want to do? Su Zian flung his sleeves, using a tone that was intolerant of being rejected, and said, "You will go to the Jade Lakesley family and apologize to the Jade Lakes Fairy. At that time, they will naturally hand over the antidote." Su Luo indifferently sneered. How could just apologizing be enough? I will still have to vow to never see His Highness Prince Jean or something like that, right? Su Luo, are you saying you don't want to go? How could you do this? He is our older brother, and it was also because of you that he became like this. You are simply too cold-blooded, too disgusting. Sushi, seeing that Su Luo did not even listen to what Su Zian said, rushed forth to place all the blame on Su Luo. Su Luo cast her an apathetic glance, then her gaze firmly locked on to Su Zian. Apart from this, are there no other methods? Su Zian coldly snorted. Only if you go apologize to the Jade Lakesley family can we retrieve back the Celestial Spirit Water. Celestial Spirit Water? Su Luo's expression changed slightly, as if she was extremely astonished. Yes, just that Celestial Spirit Water. Only Celestial Spirit Water can cure the poison in your big brother's body. But Celestial Spirit Water. Su Luo hummed and hawed. Using you to exchange for Celestial Spirit Water, that is still looking up at you. Su Luo, do you even know how precious Celestial Spirit Water is? Such a huge, powerful Jade Lakesley family can only get one bottle in 3 years. 100 you would not even make up for a single bottle. Using you to exchange for it can still be considered you profiting. In fact, Sushi basically did not know what Celestial Spirit Water was. She only wanted to endlessly disparage Su Luo. Su Zian was very dissatisfied with Su Luo's hesitant expression. Su Luo, when conducting oneself, you must not be so selfish. Today, you must go to the Li family. Even if you don't want to, you still have to go. Guards, following immediately after Su Zian had finished speaking, 2 robust men, like iron towers, appeared at the doorway. The corner of Su Luo's mouth slowly hooked into a cold sneer. She observed what's happening now in her space. The little divine dragon had already woken up. He was currently soaking comfortably in the bathtub, and the water he used to bathe in was exactly the celestial spirit water that these people regarded as extremely precious. 100 of her could not make up for a single bottle of celestial spirit water? Simply too funny. If she was to take out the celestial spirit water now, and after Li Yaoyao found out, wouldn't she be angry enough to spit out blood? Able to make Li Yaoyao angry enough to spit out blood. This was Su Luo's favorite thing to do. If I brought out celestial spirit water, then I won't have to go to the Jade Lakesley family, right? Li Yaoyao was still at home, waiting for her to come kneel and beg for forgiveness. Simply too funny. Su Zian's eyes stared blankly. He still hasn't spoken yet before seeing Sushi sneer a few times. Humph, you said that you can take out celestial spirit water? Who are you trying to deceive? Su Luo did not pay any attention to this clown that just jumped in. Her pair of deep eyes stared fixedly at Su Zian. Su Zian's face remained cold. His eyes had a penetrating chilliness. Su Luo, are you stalling for time to wait for His Highness Prince Jean? A pity, His Highness Prince Jean was sent out by His Majesty to carry out official business. No matter how long you stall, it won't be enough time to wait until he gets back. Su Luo smiled faintly. From within her sleeves, she brought out a bottle of celestial spirit water and tossed it at Su Zian. It just so happens that Apothecary Long is here. We can invite him, the wise elder, to examine if this is a real bottle of celestial spirit water or not. Su Zian looked at the white jade porcelain bottle in his hand. He opened the porcelain bottle and slightly sniffed the contents. Immediately, he knew this absolutely was celestial spirit water. Chapter 663, High-Grade Celestial Spirit Water. 4. Su Manor once had a bottle of celestial spirit water, and it was extremely treasured for many generations. Su Zian had also seen it on more than one occasion, and also drank a few drops. Therefore, with one glance, he was able to recognize that this indeed was celestial spirit water. Moreover, if he did not guess wrongly, this bottle of celestial spirit water's medicinal properties was a lot better compared to the bottle that Su Manor once had. Su Zian's face revealed a puzzled expression, but he still handed the bottle of celestial spirit water over to Apothecary Long. Since the moment when Su Luo entered, she secretly greeted Apothecary Long. As a result, Apothecary Long did not hastily acknowledge her. Apothecary Long accepted the white jade porcelain bottle, swayed it a bit, shook it a little, then sniffed it a bit. "This is wrong." Apothecary Long mumbled to himself. His face had a puzzled expression. How is it wrong? Su Zian already confirmed this was celestial spirit water. Therefore, he looked at Apothecary Long with doubt. Su Luo's face was also somewhat puzzled. This was clearly celestial spirit water. How could it be wrong? This is not celestial spirit water. Apothecary Long sampled a drop. Seeing Su Zian and Su Luo's perplexed expressions, he then gave a firm answer. It is more accurate to say that this is high-grade celestial spirit water. High-grade celestial spirit water? Are there distinctions among celestial spirit waters? Su Zian asked. Apothecary Long shot him a disdainful glance. Ignorant and inexperienced. Celestial spirit water naturally has high and low-grade classifications. For example, the celestial spirit water from the Jade Lakesley family, collected as drops from the block of stalactite, that is the low-grade kind. How could its medicinal potency even be compared to this high-grade celestial spirit water? Once these words were said, Su Zian was momentarily dumbfounded. If it was said like this, then wouldn't the celestial spirit water, that was passed down from generation after generation in the Su Manor as a treasured object, be at most only considered low-grade celestial spirit water? Because it was passed down from generation to generation, as a result, that bottle of celestial spirit water was treated as an extremely precious treasure. But how could Su Luo, this loathsome girl, be able to so casually take out a bottle of celestial spirit water? Moreover, the one she took out was a high-grade one? Luo, where did you get this bottle of celestial spirit water? Quickly tell it to Daddy. Su Zian, with one action, grabbed Su Luo and asked excitedly. The corner of Su Luo's mouth curved up into a sneer. Luo? Wasn't this the first time that Su Zian had used such an intimate name to address her? If it wasn't for the matter of this high-grade celestial spirit water, why would Su Zian address her in such an intimate manner? Su Luo, without batting an eye, pushed aside his hand, her gaze deep yet vigorous. A sweet smile emerged at the corner of her lips. Can't father guess the answer? Seeing this kind of expression on Su Luo's face, Su Zian was slightly distracted. Immediately, he realized, could it be His Highness Prince Jean? The corner of Su Luo's mouth curved into a slight sneering arc. Since Su Zian believed it so, then I'll just let him continue believing it. This way, she would not be revealed and could also demonstrate how much His Highness Prince Jean valued her. A matter of killing two birds with one stone. What could she have against it? It really is His Highness Prince Jean. Su Zian mumbled to himself. Before, even though His Highness Prince Jean expressed Su Luo's importance to him, but Su Zian had never believed it. He always felt that among this was merely a bluff. But now, His Highness Prince Jean even gifted Su Luo with high-grade celestial spirit water. This was sufficient to prove His Highness Prince Jin's affection towards Su Luo. The more it was like this, the more jittery Su Zian's heart became. Because the Jade Lakesley family was like a towering mountain heavily pressing down. It was like a sharp sword hanging over his head, making things exceedingly difficult for him. Su Luo, seeing his hesitation, naturally guessed 90% of his thoughts. But she was having fun watching this play, so she didn't expose his thoughts. Honorable Father, since we already have high-grade celestial spirit water, why not let Big Brother drink it first? Big Brother's appearance seemed to show that he is in extreme pain. Su Luo's eyes hung down slightly and looked towards Su Jingyu, who was moaning painfully on the bed. Chapter 664, High-Grade Celestial Spirit Water. 5. Su Zian suddenly came to a realization and hurriedly looked towards Apothecary Long. Will directly feeding this to him be fine? Apothecary Long gave a slight snort. Yeah? Ever since Su Luo brought out the bottle of celestial spirit water, Madame Su hadn't said a single sentence. She rigidly stood on the side with a very stiff complexion. Seeing Su Zian personally feed Su Jingyu the celestial spirit water, an awkward and difficult expression flashed across her face. Could it be the scheme they had arranged with great difficulty would be destroyed by a bottle of celestial spirit water that this loathsome girl had brought out? Her heart was unreconciled, definitely would not be reconciled. Recalling the black-clothed person from yesterday, Madame Su irritably clenched her fist tightly. What should she do? Madame Su tried to think of a way, but could not think of a method, so she could only watch as Su Zian fed the medicine to Su Jingyu. After he finished feeding him, Su Jingyu's originally ugly complexion gradually started to recover. It's not advisable to be so noisy in the sick room. Let us all go out. Only need to leave Madame Su here to attend to him is enough. Apothecary Long took the lead and stepped out of the room. These words were an exact fit to Madame Su's intentions. One could only see her nod her head and hurriedly say, "You can be at ease and leave. This place still has me." Su Luo's foot that was about to step over the doorstep paused slightly. She turned her eyes around and took a glance at Madame Su. At this moment, Madame Su's eyes were also looking at Su Luo. Su Luo neither dodged nor avoided her gaze. The corner of her indistinct and bottomless eyes were raised into an enigmatic smiling expression. Madame Su was distracted momentarily by her smile. However, she could not understand the meaning in Su Luo's eyes. She only knew that Su Luo was pretending to be a model while causing mischief behind the scenes. The pitiful Madame Su, now, if she could give it more thought, maybe the tragedy after this would not have occurred. Speaking of which, after Apothecary Long and the others had left, there were only two people, Madame Su and Su Jingyu, left inside the room. Madame Su sat at the bedside, tenderly wiping away the sweat on Su Jingyu's forehead. With a soft tone, she slowly said, "Jingyu, I have let you suffer hardship. Please do not blame your mother. Your mother was also left with no choice." Su Jingyu lay there motionless, both eyes closed tightly, having sank into a deep coma. Madame Su still wanted to say something, but a slight sound came from outside the window. Madame Su alertly raised her eyes, but only felt her eyes become slightly dazzled. When she looked again, she discovered a black-clothed person standing in front of her. Her entire body was shrouded in a black robe. Even her face was covered by a black cloth. However, looking at the detailed and exquisite curves, Madame Su, in one glance, judged that this was a woman. As a result, Madame Su subconsciously connected her to the black-clothed person from last night. "What do you want to do?" Seeing the black-clothed person slowly approach closer step by step, an alarmed expression flashed through Madame Su's eyes. The black-clothed person's eyes had a sneer in its depths. "Madame Su, things have already reached this stage. What are you afraid of? What exactly do you want to do?" Madame Su blocked in front of Su Jingyu, her face revealing a terrified expression. At this moment, Madame Su was extremely regretful. Su Jingyu was her only son. Seeing him being tormented by poison time and time again, her motherly instincts and heart were simply crying blood. If she had known earlier that her son would receive this much suffering, then, no matter what, she would not have agreed to this plan. The black-clothed person smiled coldly and sinisterly, then gave Madame Su the poison. "Feed it to him." "What is this?" Madame Su was so anxious that she instantly shook her head. "Rest assured, the poison will not kill him, but it will drag Su Luo, that loathsome girl, into troubled waters." The black-clothed person, seeing Madame Su continuously shake her head, smiled sinisterly before taking out another bottle of pitch-black liquid medicine. She swept it past under Madame Su's nose. That pungent smell made Madame Su's face suddenly go pale. "This is one-shot silencer?" One-shot silencer, as the name implied, by just drinking a mouthful, The person's soul would be taken to the Western Pure Land of Ultimate Bliss. 1. Western Pure Land of Ultimate Bliss, aka Underworld, World of the Dead, or whatever you call the place where your soul goes after death. Chapter 665, High-Grade Celestial Spirit Water. Now, I'm giving you a chance to choose. Do you want to feed him this bottle of slow-acting poison, or this one-shot silencer? The black-clothed person's eyes curved into a shallow smile and coldly laughed. Of course, you can also choose to yell loudly. However, if it is like that, Madame Sue, you also won't be able to escape. The black-clothed person got close to Madame Sue's ears and quietly said, Jade Lakesley family will not let you and your kids go. When that time comes, the sole remaining person from the next generation in Sue Manor will only be Sue Luo. Madame Sue's entire body shook. Then she rigidly stood on the spot. She opened her eyes wide, rigidly glaring at the black-clothed person in front of her. Even though she was covered in black cloth and there was a black scarf masking her face, but Madame Sue knew that this person was indeed the Jade Lakes Fairy. She never expected that the Jade Lakes Fairy would be this malicious. At this moment, Madame Sue was so regretful that her intestines turned green. Her eyes were filled with hatred, wishing she could pounce up and chop the Jade Lakes Fairy into pieces. But the corner of the black-clothed person's eyes had a smile. That sneer was like a smile, but not a smile, and was very obvious. The Jade Lakes Fairy was simply confident that she would follow her instructions. In fact, Madame Sue simply could not refuse. Because the consequences of refusing, she could not afford to bear it. Madame Sue's eyes held tears as she silently took the bottle of poison from the black-clothed person's hands. Very carefully, she supported Su Jingyu. However, no matter what, she could not feed it to him. In order to avoid the long nights with many dreams, the black-clothed person's hands shook the one-shot silencer in her hand. Do you need this fairy to help you feed this to him? The Jade Lakes Fairy. You bully people until it's intolerable. Madame Sue dared to be angry, but didn't dare say a word. She could only hasten the movements of her hands. Jingyu, do not worry. Apothecary Long is outside. He will quickly cure you. Good child. Drink this medicine in one mouthful. Madame Sue endured the anguish in her heart and poured the black-colored medicine into Su Jingyu's mouth in one shot. However, the medicine's taste was truly too bitter. Even though Su Jingyu was in an unconscious state, he still instinctively resisted. Madame Sue became extremely anxious, afraid that the black-clothed person would blame her. However, when she turned around to look again, she discovered that the black-clothed person had unexpectedly disappeared into thin air. Like this, could she stop feeding it to him? Just at this moment, the noisy sound of footsteps could be heard coming from the doorway. When Madame Sue heard it, her complexion immediately turned pale. Seeing that there was still more than half a bowl of black-colored medicine left, and that the room simply did not have a place to dump the medicine, immediately, Madame Sue became very anxious. Jingyu, quickly finish drinking all of this. If it was other people, then fine. But Apothecary Long was also following behind. Wouldn't he see through it at a single glance? Madame Sue was so anxious that her hands started to tremble. The pitch-black liquid medicine flowed along the corner of Su Jingyu's mouth and dropped downwards. Madame Sue was wiping Su Jingyu's mouth with one hand while the other hand hurriedly fed him the medicine. In the end, hearing that the footsteps were about to come in, and that there were still 2 mouthfuls of medicine left in the bowl, Madame Sue's heart hardened and directly poured it down her own mouth. The moment Su Zian entered, he just so happened to see Madame Sue raise her head to drink something. He couldn't help but feel it was strange and asked, Madam, what are you drinking? Oh no, nothing. Madame Sue swallowed that black-colored medicine with great difficulty and hid the medicine bottle carefully. Only at this moment did Madame Sue suddenly recall. Actually, from the start, she could have poured the medicine into the bottle and hide it together, so she would not be braving a huge risk by drinking it herself. When she thought of this, Madame Sue wished she could hit her own head. Madam, in the end, what is wrong with you? Su Zian felt that the Madame Sue right now was extremely strange. No, nothing. Madame Sue spread out her hands, hinting that there were no problems. Su Zian sent her a suspicious glance, then turned around to look at Su Jingyu with concern. 1. Long nights with many dreams is the direct translation. Basically, it's an eloquent way of saying it's taking forever. Chapter 666, High-Grade Celestial Spirit Water, 7. When he saw Su Jingyu's appearance start to darken, he suddenly had a very bad premonition. Sure enough, in the next moment, Su Jingyu's entire body actually started to shudder and convulse. His veins stuck out as if about to explode, seeming very malevolent. Su Zian was so anxious that he shouted out loud, Apothecary Long! Apothecary Long! In the end, what is going on? What is wrong with Jingyu? Apothecary Long walked forward a few steps and started to feel Su Jingyu's pulse. At this time, Madman Su's complexion became pale. She was unable to suppress her entire body from trembling. Her heart ached and she was also scared. She simply dared not continue to watch. Her tears flowed violently. Other people would only say that she loved her son with a pure heart, so they did not think in any other direction. Speaking of Apothecary Long, now, his forehead was wrinkled into the character. His gaze had ignited into a raging flame. He abruptly turned his head. In a rage, he glared at Madame Su. In the end, what did you feed him? A trace of astonishment flashed through Madame Su's heart. She didn't know how much Apothecary Long could see through. As a result, Madman Su could only continuously shake her head, retreating backwards. She kept crying until she could not say a single word. Su Zian was sensitive enough to perceive the fishiness of the situation. He frowned and stared at Madame Su. In the end, what is going on? Could it be that you really fed Jingyu something? It's mighty soul grass. Apothecary Long approached Su Jingyu's mouth, slightly sniffed it a bit, and firmly said, This is precisely mighty soul grass, no mistake. Su Zian's entire face was full of doubt and also carried nervousness. This mighty soul grass. What is it actually? Apothecary Long did not feel like paying him any attention and directly snorted. He pointed to Madame Su and said, Ask her. Madame Su's back was now pressed against the wall. She had nowhere else to retreat. Su Zian walked in front of her with 2 to 3 steps and very fiercely glared at her. Quickly speak. In the end, what kind of stuff is mighty soul grass? Why did you feed it to Jingyu? Why? Apothecary Long, being angered to this point, was sufficient to illustrate the seriousness of the situation. However now, Madame Su was feeling guilty, fear, and dread. All kinds of feelings washed over her. Her mind changed and became stupid because of these emotions. I don't know. Don't know. Madman Su's tears kept dropping down. Apothecary Long snorted several times. If you won't say it, then I will say it for you. This mighty soul grass, its most terrible effect is on the cartilage, especially if it's the body of a person in poor health. After eating mighty soul grass, the entire body's bones will soften. If he ever wants to stand again, it's already impossible. Not his is not true. This is not true. Madame Su was frightened to a stop by Apothecary Long's words. She lost her head out of fear and threw herself to kneel in front of Apothecary Long. It's not. It should not be like this. She said this poison is not fatal. What Madame Su inadvertently blurted out, she, herself, was still not aware of it. Su Zian heard it clearly. He advanced forward with a huge step and grabbed onto Madman Su's back collar in one move. His pair of eyes were so enraged that they nearly shot out flames. She said this poison is not fatal? Who is she? Quickly speak. Madame Su dared not say. Jade Lake's fairy's background was so huge. If she was to confess, at that time, it would not only be Jingyu, even Sheer would be. Only now did Madman Su truly understand the meaning of staying with a tiger to seek its skin, and understood the meaning of getting on a boat is easy, but getting off is hard. Speak! Su Zian's fingers were like steel pliers, pinching Madame Su's neck and lifting up her entire body, such that both her feet was lifted from the ground. Chapter 667, High-Grade Celestial Spirit Water, 8. Madame Su's feet randomly moved, and her complexion swelled until it was red. Her neck was already twisted until it was broken by Su Zian. Will you speak or not? Say it or not. If you don't say it today, I will strangle you to death. Madame Su's complexion swelled red, then, from scarlet red, it turned into purple, as if in the next second, she would stop breathing. Just at this moment, suddenly, something rolled out from Madame Su's sleeves. Apothecary Long picked it up, looked at it, and snorted a few times. The medicinal bottle for Mighty Soul Grass. Things have already reached this point, and you still refuse to admit it. Su Zian saw that the evidence was conclusive. He was fuming with rage. His appearance had twisted malevolently, and he seemed extremely frightening. Bitch! You dare kill my son, I will kill you. Kill you. Seeing Madame Su's neck issuing a gurgling sound, as if it was about to be cut off, Su Luo stepped forward bravely. She calmly pulled Su Zian's arm to a halt. Honorable father, keep calm. Big brother is mother's biological child. It's impossible for her to harm big brother without cause or reason. Maybe mother was set up and being framed by someone. Even Su Luo, who didn't like Madame Su, had come out to mediate the quarrel. The hot blood that had rushed up to Su Zian's head slowly went down. His emotional mood alleviated slightly. With one fling, he shook off Madame Su, just like tossing out worn-out clothing, conveniently flinging it to the side. However, his expression was still very fierce as he glared at Madame Su. Quickly speak. In the end, who gave this medicine to you? Quickly speak. Su Zian simply could not imagine that this slut would actually poison Jingyu. He was her own biological child, also her only son. Su Luo lightly glanced at Madame Su. Honorable mother, Apothecary Long has been angered to this degree. If you do not give his honorable elder a satisfying answer, then big brother's illness will truly be incurable. Su Luo's words, with regards to Madame Su, was the last life-saving straw. Her eyes suddenly brightened. Crawling on the floor, she then hugged Su Zian's legs and sobbed, My lord, I was wrong. It was I who was blinded by stupid jealousy. If not, I would never have poisoned Jingyu like this. This mighty soul grass, in the end, who gave it to you? Speak. Su Zian angrily kicked her away. Madame Su's chest was kicked, and she immediately spit out 2 mouthfuls of blood. Her head rose up with great difficulty, as she disjointedly said, It was Jade Lake's fairy. It was her who gave me the poison. The Jade Lake's fairy. When these words came out, the entire room immediately became quiet and silent. How could this be? Su Zian's cheeks twitched. Wasn't Jingyu beaten up by the Jade Lakesley family? You idiot. To actually cooperate with them to poison Jingyu? How could there actually be a mother like you under the heavens? Cheap woman. Why don't you just go die? The more Su Zian thought, the angrier he became. He sent another heavy kick towards Madame Su again. Madame Su's ribcage produced a loud and clear fracturing sound. Hearing it would make a person's blood run cold. Madame Su's tears and mucus tumbled down together. As matters stood, what good was there in concealing things? Madame Su might as well just reveal everything, and told them the whole truth. Actually, in the beginning, Jingyu did not receive heavy injuries. He only received some superficial bruises, and then ate some medicinal pills to pretend to be seriously injured. Su Zian only felt his temples slowly throb with pain. Su Zian cast his gaze towards Apothecary Lung, and Apothecary Lung nodded his head. It was indeed so, therefore, at that time, this apothecary only gave you a few recovery pills, but, at that time, your honorable elder didn't explain the situation clearly. Su Zian's heart was very twitchy. Inevitably, he wanted to blame Apothecary Lung, but, on the surface, he did not dare to show the slightest bit of disrespect towards Apothecary Lung. Chapter 668, High-Grade Celestial Spirit Water, 9. Then what about last night? Don't tell me that poison. Su Zian's complexion became gloomy and frightening. Last night, the Jade Lake's fairy personally came, saying that the gigantic 8-legged scorpion's poison was not difficult to cure. As long as Su Manor tied up Su Luo, that loathsome girl, and delivered her to the Jade Lakesley family, they naturally would deliver the celestial spirit water. At that time, Jingyu would have no problems. Madame Su told the truth. Right now, Su Zian was leaning on one side with an indeterminate mood, enigmatically. No one could possibly understand what he was thinking. Su Luo looked at Madame Su, a cynical expression flashing through her eyes. But her face only looked like a person who had been wronged. Honorable mother, you really hate me this much? In order for you to be rid of me, this thorn on your side, this thorn in your flesh, you didn't even hesitate to gamble with Big Brother's life. Honorable mother, don't tell me that in your heart, killing me is more important than Big Brother's life? Su Zian, with one hand, lifted up Madame Su. Don't spout rubbish. Clearly, all of this is an evil scheme set up by you. Stop falsely accusing others. The Jade Lakesley family, Su Zian knew that he could not afford to offend them. As a result, this black pot could only be shouldered by Madame Su. But Madame Su hadn't realized Su Zian's thoughts. She anxiously shouted loudly, "It really is the Jade Lake's fairy. It really is her. Last night, it was her. Just a moment ago, it was also her. She held the mighty soul grass and one-shot silencer for me to choose. I really had no choice." Apothecary Long coldly smiled. "The great General Su, your wife poisoned your son, and time after time, you came to invite this apothecary to treat the illness. Are you deliberately making sport of this apothecary?" Su Zian, being mocked and ridiculed by Apothecary Long like this, immediately, his heart was greatly alarmed. Soon after, a burst of fear attacked his thoughts. That's right, from Apothecary Long's point of view, this was deliberately being bothersome to him. Before he finished speaking, Apothecary Long flung his sleeves and walked away. "Apothecary Long, don't be angry, you." Su Zian hurriedly chased after him with large strides. What do you call this situation?" With great difficulty, a relationship with Apothecary Long was established through Su Shi. But who would have known that cheap woman would go mad and do this kind of thing? He wished he could choke her to death. Apothecary Long was clearly extremely angry. His strides were large and also very fast. Su Zian hurriedly chased after him, and with great difficulty, finally caught up. However, Apothecary Long angrily flung him away. "Sheer, quickly go and apologize to Apothecary Long." Now, as things stood, the only one who could save Jingyu was this honorable elder. Su Zian was so anxious that his entire head and face were full of sweat. Oh, in fact, Sushi was there all along, only there was no sense of her existence there. At this moment, being called out by Su Zian, even though her heart was somewhat at a loss, she still chased after Apothecary Long, full of confidence. Apothecary Long treated her differently. He was unlikely to reject her, right? Sushi's heart thought like this. Momentarily, the people inside the room had emptied out. There was only Su Luo left who could stand. Su Jingyu laid on the bed half dead, spitting out blood non-stop and continuously twitching, appearing to be extremely sinister. The poison in Madame Su's body had also begun to take effect. She suddenly thrashed. After a short interval, she thrashed again. Because she was heavily kicked several times by Su Zian before, Madame Su was already close to dying. Adding in the poison that was breaking out, now, her entire person cut an extremely sorry figure. Seeing her cutting such a sorry figure and fallen to the floor in disarray, Su Luo squatted down and was all smiles as she looked at Madame Su. Madame Su very fiercely glared at Su Luo. At this moment, the smile of victory at the corner of Su Luo's mouth was just the opposite of Madame Su's shameful performance, making her extremely angry. Su Luo leaned close to Madame Su's ear. In a low voice, she said a sentence. "Actually, the black-clothed person just now was me." Chapter 669. At the time when leaving, 1. Su Luo stood up and tidied her dress. Only after this did she leave. Before leaving, she instructed the servants. Madame Su had been kicked by the master, and her injuries are very serious. This miss will go invite Apothecary Long. At the moment, Madame Su was provoked by Su Luo's words. but her entire body was already unable to move. She was even unable to speak. Her two eyes became perfectly round as she rigidly glared at Su Luo. Her eyes were filled with hatred. However, Su Luo merely smiled indifferently, apathetically glanced at Madame Su and Su Jingyu, then turned and left without any reluctance. This matter, she didn't regret one bit of it. If someone was to be blamed, then blame Madame Su and Su Jingyu, who were fine until they insisted on thinking of this plan against her. From the start, Su Jingyu pretended to have been seriously injured. It was to the degree that Su Zian nearly tied her up to send her to beg the Jade Lake's Fairy. Apothecary Long's appearance completely destroyed their plans. Furthermore, after one plan had failed, they hatched another plan. And that was to feed Su Jingyu poison, while only the Jade Lakesley family had the antidote. As a result, Su Zian would still tie Su Luo up to go and beg for forgiveness from the Jade Lake's Fairy. However, nobody had expected that at the last moment, Su Luo was able to bring out a bottle of celestial spirit water. In addition, it was even high-grade celestial spirit water, and the medicine's efficiency was extremely good. Thus, the Jade Lake's Fairy and Madame Su's plans failed miserably again. But how could Su Luo let herself suffer a loss in vain? This entire matter was already within her own plans. Thus, Su Luo disguised herself as the black-clothed person. Because her mouth was covered by black cloth and Su Luo could meticulously imitate the Jade Lake's Fairy's tone of voice, as a result, Madame Su was unable to recognize that it was her. Also, as a result, Su Luo was able to successfully frame the Jade Lake's Fairy as the criminal who poisoned them. Because before that time, it really was the Jade Lake's Fairy who had poisoned Su Jingyu. As a result, it's as if the Jade Lake's Fairy had poured yellow mud on the crotch of her trousers. Even if it's not shit, it's still shit. She could only accept this accusation. Not only was this able to make Su Jingyu lay paralyzed in bed, but it also made Su Zian reject Madame Su. In the end, it also successfully framed the Jade Lake's Fairy. Su Luo called this gaining 3 advantages in one move. From her perspective, Madame Su was already no longer a threat, and Su Jingyu had also become a cripple. Looking at this huge Su manor, penetrated by a cold and cheerless atmosphere, the corner of Su Luo's mouth curved into a bitter smile. She had no intention of harming anyone. But in the end, due to all these people in Su Manor moving against her, they had dug their own graves, truly very amusing. First it was Su Wan, then Su Qing. Now it was Su Jingyu and Madame Su. Hopefully Su Shi and Su Zian would be able to recognize reality and won't come to frame her again. Otherwise, the corner of Su Luo's mouth lifted into a faint smile, her figure quickly disappearing from the place where she stood. Long Manor. Outside, at the gates of Long Manor, Apothecary Long had angrily flung his sleeves and returned to his manor. Long Manor's gate closed heavily with a bang sound. The door shut out Su Shi and Su Zian, who were right behind, chasing after him. The steward guarded the gate and angrily glared at them. A good dog does not obstruct the road. Quickly leave, leave. Long Manor does not welcome you. His master rarely dropped his prestige to go and give these influential families examinations. Who would have known that they would be this indiscriminating? They actually dared to make a fool out of their master, truly too hateful. The steward closed the door with a loud bang sound, locking Su Zian and Su Shi outside the gate. Su Zian became extremely anxious. With one hand, he pressed down Su Shi's head. Kneel down, quickly kneel down and admit our mistake to Apothecary Long. Quickly. He hoped that Apothecary Long would reconsider on Su Shi's behalf to be lenient and properly treat Jingyu's illness. Otherwise his son would truly be wasted. Su Shi was heavily pressed down to the ground. Because of the violent force, her knees immediately gave a burst of intense pain. Daddy! Su Shi tasted pain. Her eye sockets were full of tears. Chapter 670. At the time when leaving Tu, however, Su Zian's face was expressionless. Now, the lives of your mother and your brother are in your hands. If you're able to ask Apothecary Long to come back, they will be fine. If you can't invite him back, then they're finished. Su Shi was scared silly. Daddy, actually, Apothecary Long didn't give your daughter any preferential treatment. Sushi wanted to explain. Su Zian, however, shot her a harsh sideways glance, scaring her into silence. Sheer, now isn't the time to shirk responsibility. You should think about your brother and your mother. Su Zian rubbed her head. If you plead here properly, with Apothecary Long treating you so well, his heart will definitely soften. But Daddy, Apothecary Long simply doesn't treat me Sushi felt like crying but lacked the tears. She did not even know what was going on. Why was everyone so sure that Apothecary Long really liked her? Sushi, if you're like this, Daddy will be very disappointed. Su Zian looked at Sushi seriously. Fine. Sushi agreed tacitly. Then what about you, Daddy? Full of expectations, Sushi raised her head to look at him. Daddy will go to the Imperial Palace and ask His Majesty for an imperial decree, Su Zian said and hurriedly left. Inside the room, Apothecary Long was sitting indoors. In front of him, there was a small, dark red coffee table. On the table, there was a small, red clay stove, and on it, there was a pot of tea simmering. When the water reached the boiling point, it let out a bubbling sound. When having tea, naturally, there would be someone to keep you company. At this time, there was a person seated opposite of Apothecary Long. This person was none other than Su Luo. It was only after washing the cup with the first pot of tea did Apothecary Long then set a new cup of perfectly steeped tea before Su Luo one. Unhurriedly, he said, "This is heart-cleansing tea. Try some." Heart-cleansing tea? Su Luo sipped a mouthful and suddenly, a sense of enjoyment and satisfaction appeared on her face. Just drinking one mouthful, and Su Luo already had a kind of faintly discernible feeling of being high up in the clouds. She felt a warmth slowly circulating from her abdominal area to her entire body. This feeling was extremely wonderful. This tea, there was something strange about it. Apothecary Long gave a satisfied smile. A person who drinks heart-cleansing tea for the first time, more or less, will have their spiritual strength upgraded a bit. Now, how do you feel? Like I'm about to break through to the 5th rank soon. Su Luo could feel the spiritual force circulating slowly inside her body, seemingly trying to break through, as if seeking for a way out. If you can break through to the 5th rank, then you haven't wasted this old man's heart-cleansing tea that was collected over many years and given to you. Apothecary Long smiled mysteriously. On top of Su Luo's forehead was a large question mark. What's the benefit in breaking through to the 5th rank? At least you now have the minimum qualifications to enter the selection. What qualifications to enter the selection? Su Luo curiously opened her eyes wide. The mysteries of heaven must not be revealed. Apothecary Long stroked his chin. However, your ability to refine drugs is still at the elementary level. This is not particularly good. Su Luo looked at Apothecary Long with a face full of suspicion. She always had this feeling of being about to be sold off by the person in front of her. Take out the pills you refined for this old man to have a look. Apothecary Long was touching his beard. Even though you are only an elementary apothecary, if the effects of the immortality drugs you refine are good, then it's not like you won't have a chance. After all, it's only been half a year since you've entered the threshold of apothecary studies. What chance? Apothecary Long, if you have something to say, then just say it. Don't drag it out any longer. Su Luo looked at him, full of expectations. The time still hasn't arrived yet. You should wait patiently. Anyhow, it won't be bad news. No matter what, Apothecary Long was unwilling to reveal even half of a sentence. Since she was unable to draw out an answer by asking, Su Luo also obediently stopped asking. From her sleeves, she took out the spirit restoration pills she refined and passed it over to Apothecary Long. These are all the ones I refined recently. Please have a look. The moment Apothecary Long saw the milky white pills, his expression paused slightly. He took the pills and checked them carefully. He sniffed them and, in the end, even sampled a little of it. One could only see his face had an expression of amazement. These aren't elementary spirit restoration pills. 1. Serving tea. Traditionally, Chinese people would put tea in pot then added boiling water. This first pot is then pour out, often used to rinse the teacup. Then more hot water is added to the tea, and this would be allowed to seep before serving. Chapter 671. At the time when leaving, 3, Su Luo spread out her hands. The ones I refined were all like this. Does Apothecary Long think this is strange? Before, Su Luo thought the spirit restoration pills she refined had good results. The elementary spirit restoration pills had the effects of an intermediate-level spirit restoration pills. You, this girl. Apothecary Lung's serious gaze sized up Su Luo. You're certain these were all refined by you? Absolutely true. Cheating neither the old nor young. Guaranteed it's authentic. Su Luo's face was full of certainty. But this pill? It's intermediate-level spirit restoration pill. Oh no. It's slightly better than an intermediate-level spirit restoration pill. Incomparably shocked, Apothecary Long stared at Su Luo. You, this girl, is really hidden deeply and not revealing anything, right? Come follow this old man to the refining room. You will personally refine it for this old man to see. All right, if you want me to refine it in person, then I'll refine the pills in person. In any case, I don't have a problem. Su Luo said it very confidently. Apothecary Long brought Su Luo to the refining room. Only after seeing Su Luo actually refined an intermediate-level spirit restoration pill in front of him did he believe it. Apothecary Long, how is it? Su Luo smilingly asked. Since you now have this kind of strength, there are some things I can say for you to hear. Apothecary Long brought Su Luo to sit back at their original positions. Seeing Su Luo's face full of puzzlement and curiosity, Apothecary Long gave a slight sigh. Have you heard of Grandmaster Rong Yun? Grandmaster Rong Yun? Su Luo shook her head. Never heard of him. Veins suddenly appeared on Apothecary Long's forehead. You are also an apothecary now, yet you've never heard of Grandmaster Rong Yun? Which school of refining drugs are you learning from? Confronted with Apothecary Long's furious criticism, Su Luo's neck shrank back and she weakly asked, is he really famous? Why stop at famous? Grandmaster Rong Yun is currently the only Grand Master-level apothecary on the continent. Do you know how many aristocratic and prestigious families want to entice him to join but cannot? Do you know how many experts want to seek a meeting with him but cannot? Let me tell you like this. As long as you're able to pay respects to him as a teacher, being under his name in the future, you'll be able to walk across this continent however you want. Apothecary Long slapped the table as he came to a conclusion. So powerful? Then, did he accept any disciples before? Su Luo asked suspiciously. He had. A hint of embarrassment flashed across Apothecary Long's expression. That unworthy disciple is this old man. What? Grandmaster Rong Yun is your teacher? Su Luo was really startled this time. No wonder back then, even revealing His Highness Prince Jin's title was still unable to move Apothecary Long. Apothecary Long grabbed at his hair in annoyance. Unfortunately, this old man is slow-witted and has bad aptitude. I could not completely carry on my teacher's legacy. Therefore, my teacher decided to once more accept a personal disciple. Grandmaster Rong Yun wants to accept a disciple. Why haven't I ever heard of this before? Apothecary Long slanted a harsh glance at Su Luo. You haven't even heard of Grandmaster Rong Yun. How could you have heard of him accepting disciples? Su Luo stuck out her tongue. What he said was reasonable. Apothecary Long let out a sigh. Actually, 3 years ago, my teacher had already mentioned this before. The Jade Lakesley family set their heart on it the most. For this, they had prepared for a full 3 years. Jade Lakesley family? You also know that person and are quite familiar with her. She is Li Yao Yao, Apothecary Long mumbled. Li Yao Yao. She is also an apothecary? Su Luo asked in surprise. Yes, she is an apothecary. In order to become my teacher's personal disciple, these few years, Li Yao Yao truly worked hard. She had already been promoted to intermediate apothecary. She has also followed by teacher's side for about half a year. Apothecary Long said with a sigh, teacher's temper is extremely cold. He won't easily let people get close to him. Chapter 672. At the time when leaving, 4, Apothecary Long took a glance at Su Luo and said mildly, seeing as he let Li Yao Yao stay by his side for half a year, it's clear that my teacher thinks extremely highly of her. This selection of a disciple will most likely be her. Su Luo's eyes narrowed slightly. Li Yaoyao had the Jade Lakesley family at her back and was already this headstrong and impudent. If she was allowed to pay respects to Grandmaster Rong Yun as her teacher, then when the time came, Su Luo bit her lower lip, a myriad of thoughts running through her mind. Evidently, Apothecary Long was not very fond of Li Yaoyao. He scoffed twice. Emperor Jing's words have no effect on His Highness Prince Jin. But if Grandmaster Rong Yun was to issue some words for His Highness Prince Jin to marry Li Yaoyao at that time, if His Highness Prince Jin does not agree, you're too young, so you don't know just how many people in this world owe a debt to my teacher. Moreover, those who do owe Grandmaster Rong Yun a favor, every single one of them was an elite expert in the present era. Just by stamping his feet, he could affect the region's most important person. These words, Apothecary Long did not say. Originally, Su Luo had even thought that the matter of Grandmaster Rong Yun accepting a disciple had nothing to do with her, that she was merely a spectator listening to a story. But now, hearing Apothecary Long's words, if Li Yaoyao really was selected, then Su Luo herself would no longer have a place to stand on this continent. Then, this will become a serious issue. However, Su Luo, the skin between her eyebrows creased. Apothecary Long's persistence in swaying her to become Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple, what side was he on? Su Luo raised her eyebrows with a smile yet not a smile. Apothecary Long, you are so insistent on me going to seek him as my teacher? This old man just doesn't like that Li family's girl, that's all. Apothecary Long turned his face away. You think I'll be selected? Su Luo asked seriously. Apothecary Long shook his head and told her the truth directly. The chance of that girl from Li family getting selected surpasses 90%. Whereas for you, the odds aren't even 10% for you to succeed. Su Luo stared at him resentfully. Then you still tell me to go seek him as my teacher? Isn't this just intentionally sending me to be cannon fodder? Or am I going to be cannon fodder for Li Yaoyao? However, nothing in the world is absolute. Without reaching the last moment, no one will know the result. Apothecary Long smiled as he looked at Su Luo. Right now, almost everyone is against you being with His Highness Prince Jin. But, if you become my teacher's disciple, what do those people count as? She could not help but say that Apothecary Long's last sentence had an extremely enticing ability. Su Luo thought of Nangong Lu Yun. She thought of all the effort and sacrifices he had made for the sake of their relationship. But all this time, she had always been passively receiving and never took the initiative to do anything for him. Now, it was time for her to put in some effort. All right, I promise you. A wave of unwavering determination flashed across Su Luo's face. I just don't believe that, with my innate skill of being able to refine intermediate spirit restoration pills as an elementary apothecary, I will lose to Li Yaoyao. She, who is only kind on the surface, but is a malicious and pretentious woman. Having heard that, a hint of a smile quickly flashed through Apothecary Long's eyes. The two of them had talked for so long. Even the tea had already cooled. At this time, the scorching sun was in the sky. Alone, Sushi was kneeling upright with her back straight in the courtyard. With great difficulty, Sushi managed to pull aside a passing servant. She wanted him to pass on a message to Apothecary Long, but without even glancing at her, the servant walked away haughtily. Sushi was thoroughly depressed. Just at this moment, Su Zian returned looking twitchy. He saw Sushi still kneeling as before and could not help but feel somewhat angry. Why are you still kneeling? The sun high in the sky was scorching. Sushi was dizzy and faint from being in the sun. When she raised her head and saw Su Zian, she suddenly became happy. Daddy said he was going to request an imperial edict. He was gone for so long. He must have gotten the imperial edict he requested, right? Confronted with Sushi's gaze that was full of expectations, a trace of embarrassment flashed across Su Zian's eyes. Chapter 673. At the time when leaving, 5, he did indeed go to request an imperial decree. Originally, he had wanted to use a soft method with a hard method simultaneously. If the soft one did not work, then he would use the hard one. However, he had just spoken and was immediately met with His Majesty's refusal. His Majesty's expression at that time was terrible. He just said one sentence. This emperor has no control over Apothecary Long. Just one sentence, and he annihilated Su Xian's hopes. Because of Emperor Jing's position, he knew Apothecary Long's background. He knew he had studied under Grandmaster Rong Yun. So, even though His Majesty's station was highly honored, he still did not dare to suppress Apothecary Long with an imperial decree. But with Su Xian's rank, he was not qualified to know these classified details. Now, being mentioned by Su Shi, Su Xian glared at her in annoyance and forcefully changed the subject. Apothecary Long hasn't sent anyone out to see you? He hasn't. Su Shi grumbled, feeling aggrieved. Wasn't it said that Apothecary Long treated her very well? She just could not see it. From the start, Apothecary Long had not even seen her directly with his eyes. Kneel again. Compared to Su Shi, Su Xian had complete faith in it. He coldly said, "You will keep kneeling here. If you can't invite Apothecary Long to come, then don't return to the manor." Even now, Apothecary Long had not come out. He was probably testing this girl's perseverance. He absolutely could not fail through the lack of a final effort. After making it clear, Su Xian tossed his sleeves and left. Daddy. Seeing Su Xian leaving without even looking back, Su Shi became so depressed that she wanted to hit her head against the wall. Until exactly when would she have to kneel here? From the elegant room on the second floor, that just so happened to have a view of Su Shi kneeling in the courtyard. The corner of Su Luo's mouth raised into a hint of a curve. Fortunately, Apothecary Long did not say my given name and only said the surname. Otherwise, the person kneeling there right now would be me. Apothecary Long's mouth slanted sideways a little. You, this girl, knows how to kneel? She dared to kneel. He wouldn't bear to accept it. Seeing Su Luo smile yet remain silent, Apothecary Long thought for a moment. Suddenly, a line, as if written by a god, came to him. In fact, His Highness Prince Jean needs to go into seclusion to cultivate. You've encumbered him. I've encumbered him? As expected, Su Luo's attention was instantly attracted by this. She asked in surprise, "What happened to him?" Apothecary Long shook his head and said faintly, "In the past half-year, his promotion to the next realm is too fast. Yet, he's had no time to properly stabilize it. This caused his foundation to be unstable. If he still won't go into seclusion to cultivate and harmonize everything, there might be effects that are big or small on his future." Su Luo was slightly startled to a pause. Since Apothecary Long was able to see through it, then how could Nangong Luyun not be aware of it himself? However, he acted so normal that even she was kept in the dark. If Apothecary Long had not brought it up today, she would still have been kept in the dark, not knowing anything at all. How long would he have to stay in seclusion? Su Luo's voice was very low, carrying a sense of loss. On the low end, half a year. High end would be 3 years. In a slight joking manner, Apothecary Long cast a quick glance at Su Luo. So long. Su Luo looked towards the azure sky, murmuring to herself. If it was before, Nangong Luyun would definitely choose to go into seclusion without the slightest hesitation. But this half a year, because of her appearance, therefore, he remained in the imperial capital to assist her. Moreover now, there was also the Jade Lakesley family, glaring like a tiger watching his prey. Even more so, at this time, he would not go into seclusion and abandon her to face them alone. But if it's like this, the damage to his future would be enormous. With such extraordinary gifts like his future accomplishments were limitless. However, he still decided to stay by her side. If she had not known, then it would be dismissible. Now that she knew, if she still stayed indifferent, then that's simply being too selfish and too disgraceful. I'm leaving first. Su Luo was no longer in the mood to watch the play. Chapter 674. At the time when leaving 6, when Su Luo returned to Su Manor, the sky's color had already turned dark. At this time, Su Shi was still kneeling over there. It would be a good guess that she will not be returning tonight. Lu Luo, in high spirits, walked up to wait upon Su Luo. Su Luo, seeing that she was all smiles as if from lots of happy news, couldn't help but to ask curiously, "What happened to make you this happy?" "Miss, now outside." This was spread everywhere. They are all saying that the Jade Lake's fairy, in order to force you to submit, did not hesitate to even poison the madam. Outside, it is being spread as if it has grown a nose and eyes, as if everyone had seen it with their own eyes. Lu Luo was very happy. The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into an indifferent cold smile. After Li Yaoyao had done such things and still wanted to escape unscathed, how could it be possible? Even if she had the Jade Lakesley family backing. So what? Everyone must be responsible for the things they do themselves. Now, this had only happened in Su Manor today, and in a blink of an eye, it had spread all over the streets. Everywhere was a buzz. Who was controlling this behind the scenes? The first person Su Luo thought of was Nangong Luyun. Middle of the night. The night was pitch black like ink. Su Luo's petite body was absorbed by the darkness. Her figure was nimble and fast, dashing towards the direction of Prince Jin's royal manor. Not a single guard in Su Manor noticed that Su Luo had already taken off. A great number of guards surrounded Prince Jin's royal manor, but all of them recognized Su Luo, therefore, no one stopped her. Su Luo entered Prince Jin's royal manor unimpeded and unhindered. She stopped the steward to ask, and found out that Nangong Luyun was in the bathhouse. Su Luo didn't go in and merely sat in his sleeping palace quarters to wait. Not long after, Nangong Luyun walked out dressed in a white night robe. At this moment, his black as ink hair was draped loosely behind his head. His ivory-like skin, after bathing, shone with the luster of gems. He looked extremely enticing, simply a feast for the eyes. Without waiting for Su Luo to react, Nangong Luyun's long sleeves swept up. When she looked again, she was already sitting on Nangong Luyun's lap. Seeing Su Luo, Nangong Luyun was clearly in a very good mood. His handsome face that would not smile or speak casually with others was full of smiles. Those deep eyes that were glossy and shining from being moistened by the mist of the hot spring, now were motionless as they stared fixedly at Su Luo. Those enchanting, cinnabar-colored lips hooked into a devilishly charming and roguishly enchanting smile. This king was just about to go look for you, and you just voluntarily delivered yourself to my door. You and this king's heart must really be linked. Su Luo softly caressed his face, then tapped his nose. You want to steal into a woman's room at night? Now, it's reversed with you sneaking in. This king will reluctantly accept the invitation. Nangong Luyun's warm arms carried Su Luo and headed directly towards the large bed. Being tossed upon the large bed, Su Luo was in the posture of facing upwards, looking at Nangong Luyun. This bastard's skin was indeed so beautiful as to be otherworldly. On that matchless handsome face, there was a pair of black as ink eyes that was as deep as the ocean. It gave many people the feeling that it would lure them to sacrifice their life and breath. It was so deep that it could suck Su Luo's entire person inside. His mouth hooked into a devastatingly charming smile. That smile made Su Luo's heart beat wildly with bithump sounds. Don't come over. Realizing he was about to do what he wanted, Su Luo rolled away and wanted to jump up. But now, Nangong Luyun had already pounced towards her like a hungry wolf. Consequently, Su Luo's nose very unfortunately bumped into his chest, sending out a violent sound of collision. Nangong Luyun gave voice to a stifled laugh, and with one roll, he lied on his back on the bed, whereas Su Luo was now lying on her stomach on top of his chest. Su Luo covered her nose, unhappily glaring at Nangong Luyun. How boorish! Nangong Luyun stifled a laugh, with a bitter smile, helped her to massage her nose. That attitude was like coaxing a child. Yes, yes, this king is wrong. Next time, I promise to be as gentle as water. Chapter 675. At the time when leaving 7, there was still a next time? Su Luo shot him a glare, then pulled him up to sit properly. I have something to ask you. Please be serious and vow to answer what I ask. Nangong Luyun forced a laugh as he touched his nose. Okay, what do you want to ask? Su Luo carefully swept around his body once, then finally gazed directly into his eyes. With one hand against his chest, her complexion was unprecedentedly serious. Nangong Luyun, tell me the truth. During this half year, Did you get promoted too quickly and that's why your state is unstable? Before her words had dissipated, Su Luo could feel his heart suddenly jump, although his complexion stayed the same. Fortunately, she had already placed her palm against his chest. Nangong Luyun licked his lower lip. He wanted to say something, but he was beaten by the quick-footed Su Luo. If you are thinking of an excuse, then don't bother saying it. This girl. Nangong held the hand she had placed on his chest and helplessly used his other hand to rub her head. Who said such nonsense in front of you? Whether or not it's nonsense, you understand it the most clearly. Su Luo's forehead knit, as she stared at him solemnly and seriously. Her overbearing attitude finally got Nangong Liyun to raise his hands in surrender. Because he knew, she was serious. It's Long Yin, that charlatan again. Nangong Luyun groaned gloomily with resentment, flitting quickly through his eyes. These flashes of resentment were naturally directed at Apothecary Long. Regarding Nangong Luyun being able to instantaneously guess it was Apothecary Long, Su Luo didn't feel it was strange. Because these few days, the person she had been in contact with the most was Apothecary Long. Whether or not it was Apothecary Long, who said it isn't important. The important thing is, Nangong Luyun, you must go into seclusion to cultivate. Furthermore, this matter must be done immediately. Su Luo looked at him with a deadly earnest expression, not giving him a choice. It's not urgent. The corner of Nangong Liyun's mouth rose into a demonically charming smile. It really follows the saying the emperor is not worried but the eunuch is. Su Luo scoffed twice. Can you show a little bit of care for your own body, please? Nangong Luyun merely smiled but did not promise her. Su Luo helplessly heaved a sigh. I know you're worried about me. You're afraid that after you leave, there'll be no one to protect me, and that the Li family will secretly send a killer after me, right? Nangong Luyun remained silent as before, though his very black, sharp eyebrows nodded slightly. His Highness Prince Jean, who was arrogant and aloof, had probably never been placed in this kind of awkward position before, right? Su Luo's fair fingers gently caressed his forehead, smoothing out his wrinkled brows. Looking at him, she said seriously, do you still remember the previous time of betting with Li Aoqiong on crystal stones? That time, he lost and promised me that within 1 year, the Li family won't seek to kill me. Moreover, Apothecary Long also promised me he will recommend me to Grandmaster Rong Yun. For all you know, when you come back, I will have already become Grandmaster Rong Yun's personal disciple. Apothecary Long said, Grandmaster Rong Yun has a cold and eccentric temperament, hard for ordinary people to get close to. Only by becoming his disciple can I ask him to treat your illness. Su Luo was always worried that during the full moon, Nangong would inevitably be visited by the disease in his leg. Yet, Nangong Luyun was resolute. No, my sickness must be treated by you. Willful. Su Luo pinched his face in exasperation. I only want you to treat it. Nangong Luyun insisted childishly. Su Luo was defeated quickly. Okay, I treat it, then I'll treat it. But if it's like this, I really have no choice but to pay respects to Grandmaster Rong Yun as his disciple. However, once I've paid respects to him as my teacher, the Jade Lakesley family won't be able to threaten me anymore. Nangong Luyun lightly snorted. Just thinking that the person protecting her would not be him, he felt his chest tighten, as if a large mountain was pressing down there. Chapter 676, Breaking Through to Advance a Rank. 1. Su Luo felt his mood declining, and she rested her head on his shoulder. Her cheek was pressed against his chest that was beating vigorously and steadily, and she slowly said, in addition, I am also very worried about you. If you don't stabilize your state now, in the future, if you enter recoil of madness again, what's to be done? If you don't increase your cultivation speed now, when I am bullied by people in the future, what's to be done when you are unable to avenge me? Su Luo used both the carrot and stick method while acting coquettishly, imploring. She used all kinds of reasoning simultaneously. When she said the last sentence, Nangong Luyun finally wavered. Jade Lakesley family. I will have a good talk with Li Yao Yao. Nangong Luyun said with pauses, gently stroking Su Luo's soft hair while she was in his embrace. Okay. Su Luo nodded her head obediently. Grandmaster Rong Yun sighed. I will hand it over to Lung Yin. Nangong Luyun tenderly rubbed the top of her head. Okay. Su Luo, in his embrace, rubbed against him like a kitten. Father Emperor sighed. I will speak to him clearly. The more Nangong Luyun spoke, the more worried he was. Okay. Su Luo tenderly nodded. If you have some problems, you can go seek Beichen. Okay. This night, Nangong Luyun unprecedentedly chatted away, doing something completely contrary to his identity as His Highness Prince Jin. He chattered on endlessly, briefing Su Luo about countless large and small matters, as if she were a child who was completely unable to take care of herself. And Su Luo continuously listened obediently, agreeing obediently, until she sunk into swamp-like darkness. Seeing her sleeping face, beautiful like the summer flowers, Nangong Luyun was reluctant to blow out the bedside candle. He just continuously lay on his side, motionlessly gazing at her, with tenderness and softness in his eyes. Actually, since his sect found out he had risen 2 ranks within half a year, they had already sent people to ask him to return. Recently, they were becoming impatient and were about to use force. He originally wanted to take Su Luo away with him, but recalling Li Yaoyao getting special treatment from his 2 senior brothers, Nangong Luyun hesitated. When the time came for him to shut the door for secluded cultivation, leaving Luo Luo behind, what would she do? Rather than staying with him at an unfamiliar sect, it would be better for her to stay in the imperial capital. Moreover, with Grandmaster Rong Yun there, it truly was another hopeful path. With Long Yin as a protective charm, indeed, no one truly dared to do anything to her. But, at the thought that he wouldn't be able to see her for a while, Nangong Luyun felt a stifling panic in his chest. Without him by her side, didn't know whether or not little Luo Luo would be bullied by people, whether or not she would suffer grievances. But Nangong Luyun knew, an eagle's chick must learn to soar on its own. Su Luo needed experience to be honed and then grow strong. Now, letting go was the best time. Ultimately, Nangong Luyun still left. Miss, His Highness Prince Jin is about to leave. Won't you go to send him off? Lu Luo saw Su Luo once again holding that book The Continent's History and flipping through it. She was so anxious she directly stamped her feet. Su Luo shook her head, her gaze remaining on the book. Miss, how can you be so calm and collected? Lu Luo was even more anxious than Su Luo. With His Highness Prince Jin gone, those bad characters would all again come running to create trouble. Who knows whether Miss would be able to hold on? Would the days once again return to the way they were before knowing His Highness Prince Jin? Su Luo didn't even raise her head. Your family's Miss still hasn't become so weak. You just relax 100% of your heart. Su Luo didn't dare go send Nangong Luyun off, because she feared she couldn't bear to part with him. Now, being parted at this time would give her enough time to face her feelings squarely. This was also very good. Time passed very quickly. In a flash, half a month had already passed. In this period of time, Su Luo hadn't stayed at the Su residence. Rather, she went to southern mountains. Chapter 677, Breaking Through to Advance a Rank. 2. Whatever Su Luo wanted to do, Su Zian had no ability to interfere because His Highness Prince Jin's prestige could still be felt. The spirit energy on southern mountains was rich and clean, naturally much better when compared to the capital. Su Luo cultivating in this kind of environment was simply doing half the work and getting twice the result. On this day, Su Luo was sitting at the summit cultivating, and she could faintly feel that she was about to break through. Her heart was delighted, and was just about to take advantage of this spirit force to break through to the 5th rank. But, just at this time, she felt something dangerous approaching. She felt as if she was being secretly watched by a viper. That kind of scorching, malicious gaze that made one's blood run cold. Now, Su Luo was at a critical juncture in her cultivation. How could she tolerate being disturbed? If midway, something changed, the consequences were too horrible to contemplate. As a result, Su Luo could only close her eyes tightly, pretending as if she felt nothing out of the ordinary and immersing herself only in cultivation. The weeds that were trampled on by leather boots gave off rustling noises. A large, tall, and straight figure appeared in front of Su Luo. One could only see a handsome face, with a proud expression. His every move had the arrogant mannerism of a young master from a powerful family. He looked at Su Luo, his mouth hooked into an icily arrogant and malicious arc, and sneered, "Loathsome girl, see where you can run to now." Li Aoqiong? The Jade Lakesley family? Him appearing here was absolutely not a good thing. Su Luo secretly complained in her heart. Did she, in a former incarnation, exterminate his entire family or dig up their ancestral tomb? Why was it that his entire family wouldn't let her go, time and time again coming to provoke her? Su Luo was bitterly cultivating and could not speak. Li Aoqiong smiled sinisterly. "Loathsome girl, from the beginning, when you snatched away the happiness that should belong to Yao Yao, your fate was doomed to be hunted and killed by Li family. Don't be upset. It's merely a quick thing, very fast." Li Aoqiong neared Su Luo step by step. Finally, he stood only 2 steps away from Su Luo. Seeing Su Luo cultivating, Li Aoqiong's mouth hooked into an immensely pleased, cold smile. This time, without Nangong Liuyun's protection, see if this loathsome girl could still escape the hands of the Jade Lakesley family. He extended his white, thin arm, grabbing towards Su Luo's Lingtai. If he could hit it, all of Su Luo's martial arts would be wasted. Moreover, if the Lingtai was to be broken, she would never be able to cultivate again. Just at this moment of imminent peril, suddenly, a cold light shot towards Li Aoqiong's chest. That cold light was fast as well as accurate, and Li Aoqiong had no choice but to quickly retreat a few steps, very dangerously avoiding the sneak attack. Who is it? Li Aoqiong's entire body was on guard, revealing a cautious expression, both eyes looking all around. Li Aoqiong, your words truly sound like farts. Really losing all of Jade Lakesley family's face. A person's figure landed from the top of an ancient tree. Shockingly, it turned out to be Bei Qining. From behind him, at the same time, Lan Xian's figure also appeared. Lan Xian, with hands crossed at his chest, and with not quite a smile, cast sidelong glances at Li Aoqiong. The stately oldest son and young master of the Jade Lakesley family, the future master of Jade Lake Palace, would go back on his own words and slap himself in the face. Li Aoqiong, you are really interesting. Seeing these 2 figures, a haze flashed through Li Aoqiong's eyes. These 2 bastards who wouldn't just die and go away. With great difficulty, he had waited until Nangong Liyun left, but the result was that these 2 sons of powerful families were guarding at Su Luo's side. It was as if they were afraid she would be bullied. Could this Su Luo, in a former life, had saved the world? So, this lifetime, she would be so lucky. Mind your own business, fuck off. Li Aoqiong's gaze was as icy as the edge of a blade. Bei Qining laughed heartily, jumping out with both hands at his hips. I won't just fuck off. I want to see the result of you being the butt of jokes from going back on your words. What are you going to do about it? Lan Xian also laughed heartily. One lintai is actually an acupuncture point on the center back of a person's spin. I think the author was referring to that ball of qi stored somewhere near a person's belly. Chapter 678, Breaking Through to Advance a Rank, 3. Lan Xian leisurely cast Li Aoqiong a sideways glance. If you have the ability, then drag this lord away. Come on over. Come. These 2 scoundrels. Li Aoqiong's eyes were gloomy and filled with hatred. Since you both want to court death, then do not blame me for being rude. Oh, want to make an enemy out of Beichen Palace? This lord is standing right here. Why don't you try killing me and see? Bei Qining stood there with his back straight and boldly patted his chest. Oh, you wish to make an enemy out of the Green Jade Palace? This lord is standing right here. Why don't you try to kill me and see? Lan Xian, not only had he learned Bei Qinying's temperament, he had also learned Bei Qinying's movements. These 2 youngsters were both similarly handsome, full of spirit and jumping around in a lively manner. They also used the same speech and action. Seeing this made others unable to restrain a laugh. Seeing the pair's you go I follow dialogue, a strange mood flashed through Su Luo's appearance. Suddenly, her complexion flushed red, and immediately following that, a mouthful of blood wildly sprayed out. Seeing Su Luo spitting out blood, Bai Qining and Lan Xian's complexion was greatly alarmed. They hastily wanted to step forward but was blocked in the front by Liao Qiong. Su Luo followed it up immediately with spitting out another mouthful of blood. Sister-in-law. Bai Qian's complexion was filled with worry, simply more worried than if he himself had spit out blood. Liao Qiong, you motherfucker, get out of the way. You motherfucker, looking to court death. Lan Xian was so anxious that his eyes turned red, and waved his fist towards Liao Qiong's chest. Liao Qiong moved his body sideways nimbly to evade the fist. As for Su Luo, after she vomited out 2 mouthfuls of blood, her whole body's spiritual energy surged through her entire body faster than the eye could see. The spiritual energy formed into threads and flew into Su Luo's 5 viscera and 6 bowels, as well as her meridians. An unending stream flowing in. This scene made Bai Qining and the others watching dumbfounded. This was the sign for breaking through, and also, it was the most important moment in being promoted a level. The consequences of having this moment interrupted by others was too horrible to imagine. Looking at Su Luo in front of him, Liao Qiong's face condensed into ice, an ice-cold killing intent flashing through his eyes. This time, if he let her get promoted, she would be 5th rank. This loathsome girl, within such a short time, would actually repeatedly get promoted. If she was allowed to continue to grow, in the future, wouldn't she be too strong? In contrast, Yao Yao was always praised as a little genius, yet at her age, she was merely at the summit of the 5th rank. Liao Qiong was actually somewhat worried. Based on Su Luo's promotion speed, there will come a day when she would surpass Yao Yao. As a result, he must eliminate this kind of possibility in the cradle. Moreover, he distinctly felt that Su Luo would be a threat to the Jade Lakesley family in the future. Noticing that Liao Qiong's eyes contained killing intent, Bai Qining and Lan Xian's eyes both flashed with anxiety. Before, Liao Qiong merely wanted to waste Su Luo's martial arts, but now, his eyes contained a thick killing intent, really made people anxious. Bai Qinying's speed was very fast. In a flash, his body appeared, blocking in front of Su Luo. He raised his head, and his ice-cold gaze glared at Liao Qiong. Stop your crazy way of thinking. If you dare lay your hands on her, wait until Nangong Luyun comes back. Afterwards, you should understand the seriousness of the consequences. Liao Qiong momentarily paused and stared blankly. Following this, his eyes flashed an overcast and deeply cold smirk. A person dying is like extinguishing a lamp. Only when she is dead will Nangong Luyun treat Yao Yao wholeheartedly. Bullshit. Lan Xian coldly smiled. If she dies, Nangong will certainly go crazy. Based on his temperament, when the time comes, extinguishing the entire Jade Lakesley family is not impossible. You should stop before it's too late. Do not blame me for not warning you. Extinguish my Jade Lakesley family? Hee, that also depends on whether or not he has the ability. Liao Qiong raised his right hand, a ray of light quickly flashing out from his arm. Chapter 679, Breaking Through to Advance a Rank. 4. He was of the lightning element system. Among all the elements, the lightning element had the strongest attack power. Not waiting for Liao Qiong to make a move, Bai Qining and Lan Xian's eyes met. Both of them simultaneously pounced towards Liao Qiong like hungry wolves. Liao Qiong, as the Jade Lakesley family's young master, his strength was very strong. Among their younger generation, only Nangong Luyun could completely suppress him. Originally, Bai Qining and Lan Xian could not hold him off. However, because Su Luo had given each of them a martial arts secret book before, their strengths had increased by leaps and bounds. Due to them having studied diligently, in the end, they were able to break through to the 7th rank. As a result, the two of them together could now fight Liao Qiong to a standstill. However, in the end, the scales still fell towards one side. One could only see a shadow slowly appearing behind Liao Qiong. Second Uncle Li? Seeing this, Bai Qinying's complexion immediately became ugly. The Li family's second uncle was Li Yaoxiang. The Li family was truly extremely shameless. They agreed not to chase and kill Su Luo within a year, yet they went back on their words. Nangong had just left, and they had already torn up the contract. This still does not count. One Li Yaoxiong at the summit of 7th rank was still fine. Now, an 8th rank Li Yaoxiong had come. These two were both masters at the Jade Lake Palace. Dispatching the two of them just to kill a young woman? The Jade Lake's palace had simply become extremely shameless. An angry expression appeared on Bai Qinying's face. Second Uncle Li, based on your status, you aren't moving to kill the younger generation, right? If these words spread, it won't be pleasant to hear. Li Yaoxiong had his hands folded behind him, leisurely standing in his original position and even smiling coldly towards Bai Qinying. The younger generation should not meddle in other people's business, to avoid bringing calamity to your Baichen Palace. Among the three great palaces, Baichen Palace's relationship with the Green Jade's palace was pretty good. However, they were always estranged with the Jade Lake Palace. Bai Qinying was so angry that his complexion became beet red and he threateningly said, Second Uncle Li, if you truly make a move, then do not blame this nephew for spreading this matter to the storytellers. At that time, Li family's second uncle's name will resound all over the continent. Jade Lake's Li family going back on their words will also be spread. At that time, when the Jade Lake's palace's reputation reaches rock bottom, then do not come to blame this nephew. Li Yaoxiong coldly smiled. One could only see him fling his sleeves, and immediately, 10 blue-gowned people noiselessly surrounded Su Luo in a circle, who was sitting on the spirit stone altar. Immediately, thick killing intent tensed up the atmosphere. Li Yaoxiong cast Bai Qinying a glance, a crafty expression flashing through his gaze. They are not people from the Li family, and could not be regarded as going against the contract. Clearly, he knew about the one-year agreement between Li Yaoxiong and Su Luo. Li Yaoxiong's hands moved slightly. As long as he waved his hands, the 10 assassins surrounding Su Luo would immediately cut her up into fine powder, forever disappearing from this continent. Seeing the tragedy that was about to happen, Bai Qinying and Lan Xian could not stop their fighting to help. Their hearts were extremely anxious. They were extremely close to Nangong Luyun, so they knew that this time, Nangong Luyun's feelings towards Su Luo was genuine. His feelings would inevitably shock them speechless if they underestimated its depths. In his heart, there simply was no place for Li Yaoyao. Even their childhood feelings growing up didn't exist anymore. If Su Luo was to lose her life under their protection, then their brotherly affection would also come to an end. The most important thing was, no one could imagine what kind of crazy things he would do if he learned the news of Su Luo's death. Li Yaoxiong, quickly stay your hand. The more Bai Qinying thought about it, the more terrified he became. Seeing Li Yaoxiong raise his hands high, immediately, he started to shout loudly from worry. Motherfucking Li Yaoxiong, you wish to destroy the entire Jade Lake's Li family, right? Quickly stay your hand. Stop. Lan Xian was so anxious that his eyes became red, abandoning the fight with Li Yaoxiong and directly rushing towards Li Yaoxiong. Chapter 680, Breaking Through to Advance a Rank 5, however, before Lan Xian could rush forward, 2 blue-clothed people had already stepped out to block Lan Xian's way. Fuck off. Lan Xian was so angry that he threw his fist towards them. However, the 2 blue-clothed people were also not weak. They directly tied up Lan Xian, not giving him an opportunity to get away. After Lan Xian left, the pressure on Bai Qinying suddenly increased. Facing Li Yaoxiong's pressure closing in step by step, Bai Qinying could only barely ward him off. He was unable to be distracted into doing other things such as helping. Li Yaoxiong gazed at Su Luo, who was immersed in cultivating. The corner of his mouth raised into a strangely cold smile. No matter how much of a genius you are, since you do not have a strong and solid family background, in the end, you will still fall down before you become formidable. People that dared to become the Jade Lake's Li family's enemy, there was always just one word, and that was death. Li Yaoxiong's hand that was raised, with strength, waved down. Just at this critical time of life and death suddenly, a figure appeared unexpectedly, dropping from the sky. A white ripple with Su Luo at its center spread in all directions, blocking all the surrounding blue-clothed people outside. Li Yaoxiang's eyes flashed with deep anger, and in an ice-cold manner, stared fixedly at the person who came. Third uncle. Bei Qining immediately shouted out loud from being pleasantly surprised. The person who came was precisely Bei Qinying's third uncle, Elder Bei Qian. Before, he had agreed to Bei Qinying's request to be one of the judges for Su Luo and Su Qing's life and death duel. Behind Elder Bei Qian, An Yeming's figure slowly appeared. Bei Qining sent An Yeming a gesture of approval. An Yeming's forehead was filled with tiny beads of sweat, and he complacently raised his brows. Previously, Bei Qining and Lan Xian had discovered that the atmosphere here was different, so they quickly rushed over. For the purpose of having insurance, he went to find Elder Bei Qian. He didn't expect that it would truly come in handy at a critical moment. When Li Yaoxiang saw Elder Bei Qian, his complexion immediately became very ugly. His eyes flashed an even deeper hazy black color. Elder Bei Qian looked at Li Yaoxiang and inevitably gave voice to his derision. You are also at such an age, why should you bother about a little girl? Isn't this throwing away your dignity and status? Li Yaoxiang's pair of hands was folded at his back. He arrogantly and coldly snorted. You old fart, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business, so as to avoid inviting trouble for yourself. Elder Bei Qian's smile was calm and collected as the wind. His clothes were blown by the wind, giving off crackling sounds. He seemed to possess a hint of having an immortal flavor in his bones. He cast Li Yaoxiang a glance and secretly sighed a few times. Don't tell me that you truly wish to make Jade Lake's Li family disappear from this continent in 10 years' time? Li family's second elder, you must think clearly about this. Having heard these words, Li Yaoxiang's anger, in a moment, started to spread from his chest. What did this old fart mean? Was he hinting that Nangong Luyun would exterminate the Jade Lake's Li family because of this loathsome girl? First, not mentioning whether Nangong Luyun would do this or not, but just speaking of exterminating the Jade Lake's palace, he still didn't have this ability. Speak less nonsense. If you have the ability, then hand-to-hand combat will do the choosing. Li Yaoxiang never got along with Elder Bei Qian. Now, he was even angrier because he had come to disturb them. As a result, he made his move without leaving the other party any sentiments nor face. Elder Bei Qian was also not someone who was easy to deal with. Able to oversee the country's mercenary union, how could he be a simple character? As a result, the two people came and went, the battle exceptionally intense. Spiritual energy exploded forth. In the air, the spiritual energy fluctuated violently and shook. Slowly, the two people's battlefield moved to mid-air and flew to another mountain top to continue fighting for 300 rounds. These two people's strengths were inherently equally matched. In addition, these years of fighting each other, they have already clearly felt out the opponent's strategies. Therefore, even though the fight was intense, they could not injure each other. Neither was one able to suppress the other. Very likely, they would fight for 3 days and 3 nights before determining the outcome. After these two experts had left the battlefield, the place quieted down for a second. Chapter 681. Breaking through to advance a rank. 6. Afterwards, those blue-clothed people regained their senses and instantly flocked towards Su Luo. An Yeming made his move, but he could only block 2 blue-clothed people. Lan Xian, similarly, could also only hold back 2 blue-clothed people. The remaining 6 blue-clothed people raised their falchion swords and rushed towards Su Luo. Seeing the tip of the blade was chopping down over Su Luo's head just at this extremely urgent juncture, Su Luo still remained seated cross-legged on top of the spirit altar. Her pair of eyes was closed tightly, sunk deep in cultivation, as if unaware of everything that was happening around her, completely unaware of the danger that was about to descend. At this moment, the deep cold edge of the blades shot down from high up in the sky just as the blades were about to chop down. One could only see a white light shoot out from Su Luo's sleeves. Just at this extremely urgent second, the little divine dragon shot out, his little claws swiping towards the blades with lightning speed. Bang! A violent explosive noise echoed in the air. How sharp were the little divine dragon's claws! One could see that where his claws moved past, The blades immediately shattered into pieces. The 6 blue-clothed assassins were all looking with disbelief at this white puppy. Then, they looked at each other in dismay. When did a white puppy's strength become so heaven-defying? Those blades they used were no ordinary weapons. They were high-grade weapons refined by the Jade Lakesley family's advanced-rank blacksmith. However, these weapons were actually shattered into pieces by a white puppy's claws. This simply overturned their prior knowledge. Since that day after entering the Royal Treasure Storage Pavilion, because he took an excessive amount of spirit energy, the little divine dragon had continuously slept without waking up. Today, Su Luo had the faint sign of breaking through. This state disturbed the little divine dragon in her space and startled him awake. After waking up, he was drowsy and noticed that he had grown by 3 centimeters. Also, he was promoted from the previous level of 5th rank to 6th rank. Su Luo had disturbed him, thus letting him be promoted first. The little divine dragon looked at his little paws and excitedly laughed. He was just preparing to go out and find little master to be praised. However, unexpectedly, just at this moment, a thick killing intent directly attacked towards little master. The little divine dragon's foolishly adorable pair of limpid eyes flashed with a blank expression. He subconsciously charged out, his sharp little claws clawing at those dangerous weapons. This was his instinctive reaction. However, his actions caused a scene that startled and shocked people. The 6 blue-clothed people mutually glanced at each other and simultaneously abandoned their weapons. Their eyes tightly closed, and they began muttering to themselves. They were standing in a circle. Very quickly, they condensed out large fireballs which directly smashed towards Su Luo and the little divine dragon. The little divine dragon, seeing each and every one of these large fireballs, an innocent expression flashed through his eyes. He stood motionlessly on Su Luo's shoulder. His eyes had a strange and puzzled expression as he swept these blue-clothed people a glance. Not knowing why, once those blue-clothed people were swept by the little divine dragon's eyes, they unexpectedly felt embarrassed and at a complete loss. After studying the cause, they still didn't know why. But very quickly, the little divine dragon gave them an answer. Just when these large fireballs flew about a hand's width in front of Su Luo, the little divine dragon suddenly opened his mouth. Abruptly, from his little mouth, shot out 6 small fireballs. These 6 small fireballs accurately attacked towards the 6 huge fireballs. The small fireballs were dark red in color, whereas the large fireballs were crimson red in color. Just as the small fireballs were about to hit the large fireballs, the 6 blue-clothed people coldly laughed. The small fireballs were only at the 5th rank, actually daring to fight against their large fireballs. Fire could be suppressed by water. This was common sense. However, using fire to fight fire. As expected, a magical beast's brain does not think well. However, before the cold smile at the corner of the 6 blue-clothed people's mouths could disappear, instead, it froze on their lips. Chapter 682. Breaking Through to Advance a Rank, 7. Even though they had discovered those 6 little fireballs, but the 6 little fireballs, with an absolutely tyrannical attitude, attacked the large fireballs. Afterwards, those 6 little, deep red fireballs rapidly swallowed up the large fireballs. In less than a few seconds, the large fireballs turned to ashes, fading away in mid-air. The 6 blue-clothed men looked at each other in dismay. In this glance, they all had a deeply alarmed expression. If it was fire battling fire, then fine. But to actually have the small fireballs achieve complete victory over the large fireballs? What kind of fucking situation was this? They completely couldn't understand it. The little divine dragon felt that having the small fireballs swallow up the large fireballs was not satisfyingly enough. Consequently, he controlled the fireballs to smash very fiercely towards the 6 blue-clothed men. In fact, these 6 blue-clothed men's strength were not at all bad. At least 2 of them could hold off Lan Xian, and each of the others. But the little divine dragon's appearance and display was really too shocking, to the point that they greatly overestimated the little divine dragon's cultivation level. The 6 blue-clothed men were stalled by the little divine dragon. Momentarily, they were caught up in a melee. Suddenly, the spirit force around Su Luo exploded out, one after another. Rippling waves could be clearly seen with the naked eye. A buzzing noise echoed between the heavens and earth. Everyone knew that Su Luo had successfully advanced a rank. Su Luo, who was on the spirit altar, slowly opened her eyes. What entered her eyes was a spread-out, chaotic battlefield. Swords met, elemental attacks were used. One could only see that the surroundings were dazzlingly bright with many magnificent postures, intense and lively. Suddenly, Bei Qining burst out with a shout of pain. It turned out that Liao Qiang, discovering that Su Luo had successfully advanced, immediately flew into a rage from humiliation and sent a severe palm strike towards Bei Qining. Bei Qining, who was already at the end of his spirit strength, was immediately sent flying. His entire body arced out in a parabola and fell to the back. Where would Liao Qiang still have the mood to care about Bei Qining? His foot pressed down on the ground. His entire person was like a phoenix spreading its wings, rapidly attacking towards Su Luo. During the time when he flew towards her, his hands also did not stay idle. A stream of thunderous lightning flashed with cold brilliance, directly smashing towards Su Luo. Thunderous lightning attack. This was the most formidable elemental attack, even though she had successfully reached the 5th rank. But how could she cope when faced with Liao Qiang, this type of monster who was at the summit of 7th rank? Su Luo was still like a puny child in front of him. Freeze! Su Luo reacted quick-wittedly in this emergency and squeezed out the great dimensional imprint. Now, Su Luo had already cultivated to the 2nd level of the great dimensional imprint and was able to cultivate the nothingness of space. Even though the size of this nothingness of space was a little smaller than the size of a soccer ball. However, it was very effective. That stream of thunderous lightning, with the sound of thunder, struck down like 150,000 kilograms. It was so powerful as to be impossible to block. Su Luo's luck was simply too good. She had no way to accurately calculate the speed and timing. But she was still able to place that thunderous lightning into the nothingness of space. Seeing the frantically spasming lightning dragon-like serpent in the nothingness of space slowly change into nothingness, only now did Su Luo wipe away a handful of sweat. If she was hit by this thunderous lightning from Liao Qiang, then her right now would have already been charred black. Su Luo was extremely glad, however. Liao Qiang was so furious that he nearly suffered an internal injury. Loathsome girl, you might be able to stop it the first time, but see how you will stop it a second time. Liao Qiang laughed sinisterly, but the movement of his hands did not slow down. One could only see him crush a jade pendant in his hand. Afterwards, he silently mouthed a few words. Spirit strength burst out from his palms, and one after another, thunderous lightning was condensed in mid-air. This time, there wasn't just one thunderous lightning dragon-like serpent. Rather, there were a countless number of them. Moreover, these thunderous lightning dragon-like serpents continued to grow and become stronger. A shocked and terrified feeling flashed through Su Luo's heart. What could she do? If she let Liao Qiang successfully condense out these lightning, then there would be nowhere for her to run. This time, Liao Qiang clearly had gone all out. He had crushed that jade pendant, and it was probably a precious talisman his elders gave him to save his life. This time, he must be staking everything on this one strike. Chapter 683, Breaking Through to Advance a Rank, 8. A sliver of astonishment flashed through Su Luo's heart. Crushed talisman. Suddenly, a light flashed on in Su Luo's head. Liao Qiang had a talisman to protect him. She also had one. Not to mention the jade piece given by the little divine dragon's father. She still hadn't used the spirit pinball she had picked from the imperial palace. Su Luo quickly pulled out the spirit pinball. Subconsciously, she was going to smash it towards Liao Qiang. But now, she somewhat hesitated. Based on her experience of using the spirit pinball on Liao Yin from last time, she discovered that her luck was not just typically good. In addition, this good luck might be transmitted to the other party through the spirit pinball. because last time, she lifted Liao Yin from 7th rank to 8th rank, thus leading to her own difficulty in escaping. Just recalling this past was like a handful of bitter tears. At this moment, the sky was covered with black clouds. The entire sky became overcast, nearly pitch black. This person has gone mad. Quickly block him. After Beichening spit out a few mouthfuls of blood, his head actually became sober. He covered his chest wound, limping towards Su Luo. Seeing the spirit pinball in Su Luo's hand, and once again looking at Liao Qiong, he immediately became anxious. He shouted in a loud voice at Su Luo, "Why are you still hesitating? After he succeeds in condensing them, all of us will die." Su Luo gloomily cast him a glance. He was acting like someone who was in comfortable circumstances that didn't know the bitterness of misfortune. Sometimes, when your luck is too good, it's also a kind of offense. With Liao Qiong present, Su Luo couldn't foolishly tell him about the matter with Liao Yin. Quickly smash it. Beichening was so anxious that his hair nearly gave off smoke. Then you do it. Su Luo had too much confidence in her own luck, to the extent that she totally didn't dare do it. This spirit pinball has already recognized you as its master. How can I smash it? Beichening cast a depressed glance at Su Luo. In the end, why are you hesitating? It's not because you are reluctant to part with this spirit pinball, right? Su Luo looked at him with a faint complaining expression and solemnly stated again, "It's you who wants me to smash it, right?"
Yes.
Beichening was so anxious that he wished he could help her smash it. Could it be that she didn't see how urgent the current situation was? Liao Qiong was arranging the thunderous lightning dragon-like serpent array. Beneath this array, not a single enemy would be left alive. Under these kind of circumstances, why was she still hesitating? Su Luo was still uncertain. Then, if he was smashed into the 9th rank, then you aren't allowed to blame me, okay? Snort Beichen and gave a cold laugh. I say, sister-in-law, are you saying delusional words? The spirit pinball is a sharp weapon to wound people. Do you know the probability of being smashed into ascending a rank after being smashed by a spirit pinball? It's less than 1 in 10,000. My dear sister-in-law, enough. Stop hesitating. Quickly smash it. Su Luo really didn't have the heart to tell him. These kind of odds, she had really encountered it before. All right then. Su Luo thought about it and sighed in a very helpless manner. If she had to smash it, then she will smash it, resigning herself to fate. She hoped that this time, her luck would be lacking a little, just lacking a little more. Su Luo spit into her hand, touching a little bad luck. Afterwards, she condensed the spirit power in her entire body and smashed the spirit pinball towards Liao Qiong's forehead. There was a benefit to the spirit pinball. That was, once it locked onto a target, the opponent basically wouldn't be able to escape. It was a crack shot with no probability of missing the target. The spirit pinball was thrown in an arc towards Liao Qiong. At this moment, 90% of Liao Qiong's concentration was on his spirit strength in midair, leaving only 10% perception to deal with Su Luo and the others. He heard Su Luo and Beichenying's dialogue very clearly. He had already experienced the might of a spirit pinball. This kind of weapon with such a large killing power, there was no way to block it. Chapter 684. Breaking Through to Advance a Rank. 9. Liao Yin was infuriated half to death in his heart. Seeing that this array was about to be successfully completed, and then this evil moth burst out, simply made him want to walk away in rage. He could feel that this spirit pinball's might was unparalleled. Its imposing manner was like thunder weighing 150,000 kilograms. Even from a far distance, it could shock a person's heart. Liao Qiong had no choice but to reluctantly break off the 80% completed array. Everything was ruined at the last minute. Seeing that the spirit pinball was flying towards him, he turned around and dropped down to immediately escape. However, he still underestimated the strength of the spirit pinball. This spirit pinball was neither 7th nor was it 8th rank. It was a spirit pinball with the strength of a 9th rank. In this lifetime, Liao Qiong had never seen such a strong spirit pinball, so his evaluation of its speed was a failure. In the course of his attempted escape, the the spirit pinball ruthlessly smashed into his back. Boom! A mushroom cloud-shaped flame exploded out from the entire mountain top, the flames rolling and surging to the sky. The original dark sky, now, was bright as day, the dark clouds rapidly dispersing. Before the spirit pinball exploded, Bei Qining had already pushed Su Luo down, with his body pressing down on her back, his body protecting hers. When the spirit pinball exploded, the debris from the flames of the backlash covered his back with layers and layers of ash. The surroundings were frighteningly quiet, a death-like quiet and silence. It was quite a while later before Bei Qining shook off the layers of earth on his back. He struggled to climb up with great difficulty, and passing, he pulled Su Luo up. Even though she was protected under his body, Su Luo's face was still completely covered with dust. She looked disheveled and cut quite a sorry figure. Bei Qining saw Su Luo's ghastly appearance, pointed at her, and immediately started to laugh heartily. He laughed until tears were falling out. "Ha ha ha, sister-in-law, how is it you look like a little striped cat? Ha ha ha, damn your laughter. Look at yourself and then say it again." Su Luo peevishly gave him a push. Bei Qining could not stand stably, and immediately, his butt hit the ground. Su Luo couldn't help but be somewhat panicked. She hurriedly half-kneeled to examine Bei Qining. "How is it you are this weak and can't even stand up to the wind? Is it because you are injured somewhere? Quickly, let me take a look." Bei Qining's mouth split open in a laugh. He laughed until his two small canine teeth were revealed. He waved his hand. "It's nothing, I won't die." Su Luo looked at him with concern. "Still saying it's nothing? You can't even stand steadily." Seeing his entire face and body covered in dust, Su Luo couldn't help but feel somewhat guilty. Originally a youngster glowing with health and vigor, normally, he would ride a horse to cross a bridge, a playboy from a rich family that was welcomed by the entire brothel house. That handsome, extraordinary, clear little face was liked by how many young ladies? But, in order to protect her, he had become covered from head to toe in grime, resulting in such a disgraceful appearance. Moreover, for the purpose of stalling Liao Qiong, she didn't know how many hits he had received from Liao Qiong, or how serious his internal wounds were. Seeing the bloodstains on his chest and his tattered clothing, Su Luo felt increasingly guiltier. Bei Qining didn't even pay the least bit of attention to his own injuries. His face was all smiles with two little canine teeth flashing white light. He was just about to say a few sentences to make fun of Su Luo, but the smile on his face stiffened in the next moment. Su Luo could feel that the surrounding atmosphere had become strange. Seeing the stiff but twitching corner of Bei Qining's mouth, Su Lu had a very bad premonition. What's wrong? Bei Qinying's eyes were opened so wide that it was round. For a long time, he didn't speak and only used his finger to point at Su Lu's back. Now, a dense black figure appeared behind Su Lu. Under the sunlight, this figure cast a shadow on Su Luo's body. Su Luo looked at her hand that tossed the spirit pinball. Still, she finally bit the bullet and abruptly turned back when she saw the person in front of her. Su Luo only felt her eyebrows twitch. What kind of fucking luck was this? Chapter 685. God Descending from Heaven to Subdue. 1. Seeing the scene before her, Su Luo wished she could slap her own head and die. The person before her was pitch black from head to toe. His hair had been burnt. On his body, there were wounds in many places that were dripping with blood. However, the spiritual strength hovering around his whole body was truly too strong. Liao Qiong. Su Luo stayed standing where she was, staring blankly and foolishly muttering to herself. Ninth rank now. Bei Qining quietly spat out one line. Then he silently turned his head to look at Su Luo. "That spirit pinball, why didn't you smash it at me? Fuck." From the short time at the peak of 7th rank, Liao Qiong was promoted to the 9th rank. What sort of fucking luck was this? It just made people jealous enough to go mad. Okay? Su Luo silently took a glance at him and depressingly said, "If I had known the results earlier, then I might as well have bashed myself with it." Now, she was still this weak, always in the stage of being chased to be killed. If she had smashed this spirit pinball on her own head, Her cultivation speed would definitely be like a rocket and fly up in leaps. Bei Qining was so twitchy, he nearly grabbed his hair. He grabbed Su Luo's slim as a thread shoulders and shook it desperately. Sister-in-law, oh, sister-in-law, what sort of luck is this that you have? Is the goddess of fortune really your mother? Su Luo gloomily looked at her own pair of hands, then innocently looked at Bei Qining. Is this considered good luck or bad luck? With regards to you guys, this is definitely not good luck. A grim voice sounded from in front of Su Luo. Li Aoqiong's complexion was gloomy and frightening. He fixedly stared at Su Luo with a sinister, measuring look. The corner of his mouth hooked into a sneer that was both sinister and horrifying. Loathsome girl, this time, it's really thanks to you. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for me to be promoted to the 9th rank. Right now, within the younger generation, he was fully deserving of being number 1. Even if Nangong Luyun came out. So what? Hong. Nangong Luyun, it's better that you come out. He just so happened to be able to, with one step, tread Nangong Luyun under his feet. The corner of Su Luo's mouth pursed slightly. Li Aoqiong saying it like this gave her an even stronger urge to vomit blood. Inside Su Luo's heart, all kinds of flavors of regret were interweaved with each other. She was so regretful that her intestines had nearly turned green. If this moment could start over again, she would definitely smash the spirit pinball on her own head. Got some cheap advantages, and just flaunts it. What kind of great character is that? Su Luo curled her lip and scoffed twice. At an angle Li Aoqiong could not see, Bei Qining silently stood up and quietly gathered up all the spiritual strength in his body. Li Aoqiong, with a smile that was not a smile, had hooked up the corner of his mouth and stared at Su Luo sinisterly. Loathsome girl, trying to use the spirit pinball to smash me to death, right? Now, I'll let you see how formidable the me that was promoted to the 9th rank by the spirit pinball is. When he finished speaking, Li Aoqiong was still staring at Su Luo sinisterly while laughing. A laugh that made her hair stand on ends. At the same time, his palms started to move and the surrounding spiritual power rushed towards them. The strength of that power was so strong, it made a person's heart palpitate. Bei Qining, with one move, pulled at Su Luo. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and run. Su Luo's ability to escape was not hidden. The moment she heard Bei Qining give the word, she turned, released her foot, and just ran. She had already practiced the spirit dance steps until she was very proficient in it. Now, using it went very smoothly and easily. Her speed was as fast as flying. Even Bei Qining was nearly left behind by her. Bei Qining saw Su Luo, in what seemed to be a burst of wind, run in front of him, and momentarily, he was also left speechless. Seeing that Su Luo and Bei Qining were running far away, Li Aoqiong did not actually immediately chase after them to kill them. He stood motionless where he was, in a posture of mulling things over. It's just that the smiling expression at the corner of his mouth seemed even more eerie and sinister. Run? You think that just because you run fast, you can get away? Hong. Today, the two of you all must die. Chapter 686, God Descending from Heaven to Subdue, 2. After a long while had passed. When Su Luo and Bei Qining had run until they were only a little black dot, only then did Li Aoqiong start to move. One could only see his features condense into icy solemnity. The transparent spirit aura he had condensed out in his hand burst out as he loudly shouted, 1,050 kilograms of thunder. Open up for me. Suddenly this huge, matchless transparent ball of light with impossible to block might attack towards them and Su Luo's backs. Its speed was very fast, fast as the speed of light. Places where the transparent ball of light passed, all the vegetation turned to ashes. The little black that was Su Luo and Bei Qining originally could be seen, but after the transparent ball of light smashed towards it, the two little black dots disappeared from sight. Now, Su Luo was practically complaining non-stop. Before, she was still very proud of the speed of her spirit dance steps, but she never expected that Li Aoqiong's strength that was promoted to the 9th rank would be terrifying to this degree. The transparent ball of light was still far away, yet Su Luo could already feel that imposing might and cold, murderous aura. She and Beichening exchanged a glance, a shocked expression flashing through both of their eyes. Immediately after, they subconsciously separated and fled in two different directions. One left, one right, splitting from the middle, thus, the opponent wouldn't be able to wipe them out. But the transparent ball of light did not pass through the middle. Rather, very unfortunately, it exploded on the spot. Boom! The violent sound of explosion resounded to the heavens. The entire southern mountains swayed as if shaken by an earthquake. Su Luo and Beichening had just split up to run apart. They hadn't ran very far when they were enveloped by this powerful attack. Su Luo covered her head and threw herself forward. Originally, she had calculated it accurately. With her pounce, she could reach the tree branches and spread her weight, utilizing the flexibility of the branches to spring out. But, no matter how many times she calculated it, she never calculated that the transparent ball of light would explode and that its force of impact would actually be this violent. It actually forcibly shot her over 100 meters away. Su Luo was shaken until she was dizzy from the blast. With great difficulty, she was able to dig herself out of a pile of mud and discovered there were many injuries on her body. Su Luo had many cuts and wounds on her body, but none of it was fatal. This kind of life-and-death situation, who would have the time to notice whether it hurts or not? She just needed to immediately run for it. Seeing that Li Aoqiong was about to take to the sky and arrive, Su Luo's heart was endlessly annoyed. Yet, she had no choice but to pick up her courage and hurriedly flee. After all, Beichening came from the influential Beichen family. Li Aoqiong couldn't do anything to him. Therefore, Su Luo simply just abandoned him and ran away by herself. The southern mountains were a deep mountainous jungle. There was rarely any sign of people. If it was before, once Su Luo entered the jungle, she would be very hard to find. But Li Aoqiong now was already 9th rank. Su Luo had used a super spirit pinball to directly promote him from the summit of the 7th rank to 9th rank. Now, he could step on air and travel, flying high in the sky to pursue her. One was fleeing on leveled ground, while the other pursued high in the sky. One had sustained many injuries, while the other was full of vigor. The situation was completely one-sided, slanted towards Li Aoqiong. While Su Luo was running deep into the mountainous jungle, she was also slapping her own head in vexation. Su Luo wished she had another spirit pinball on hand. If it was like that, she definitely would smash it on her own head like smashing a brick. Loathsome girl, where else can you run to? Obediently come out to receive death. Ha ha ha, Li Aoqiong leisurely chased behind Su Luo. If you were to ask who was the most pleased person, without a doubt, it was none other than Li Aoqiong. His father was exactly at 9th rank in strength at that time. He felt a 9th-ranked expert strength was tyrannical and terrifying. In front of his awe-inspiring father, he didn't even dare to breath out loud. Chapter 687. God descending from heaven to subdue. 3. However, right now, he was also a 9th rank. Not to mention, it was also Su Luo who had personally smashed him into the 9th rank. This kind of feeling was too uncomfortable. Even in the Jade Lake's palace, full of high-leveled experts, he would still be among the few strongest experts. Placed in the entire continent, who would he be afraid of? He really needed to thank Su Luo properly. Rather, the manner in which Li Aoqiong thanked Su Luo was to slap her dead with one palm strike. Now, Su Luo's heart was simply depressed to the extreme. While running, she was also thinking of ways to escape. Confronted with absolute strength, any kind of trick was useless. Su Luo thought here and there. She only had one hidden trump card left. What to do? Could it be that she really needed to summon the little divine dragon's father to come? Loathsome girl, voluntarily come out to receive death and I'll leave you a whole corpse. If I catch you, humph, humph, Li Aoqiong slapped out a palm strike towards the jungle. Immediately, that huge area of trees collapsed and disintegrated. Even the forest in the far distance also suffered from the effects, with branches and leaves falling down in succession. In the wake of the collapsing trees, Su Luo's figure was immediately exposed. Li Aoqiong, who was standing in midair, locked onto Su Luo, the corner of his mouth hooking into an evil sneer. Loathsome girl, your speed is truly fast. Now see where you can run to? Su Luo stood in place, looking at Li Aoqiong solemnly, a hazed-over expression flashing through her eyes. That life-saving jade piece was gripped tightly in her hand. She was prepared at any time to crush it and cry for help. Su Luo smiled easily and indifferently shrugged her shoulders. Not running, not going to run anymore. Anyway, in the end, you would still chase me down. Li Aoqiong never imagined that this girl would say not running and would stop running. According to his knowledge of her, this girl was like a lively mudfish, slipping through his fingers when he wasn't careful. He stared coldly and fixedly at Su Luo. A trace of regret passed through his eyes. Su Luo, to tell you the truth, I really feel pity for you. In a short half-year of time or so, from not having spirit powers to having it, to being promoted in succession to the 5th rank, this kind of achievement, when surveying the entire continent, is a genius seldom encountered once a millennium. However, you unfortunately offended the Jade Lakesley family. Therefore, the Jade Lakesley family will not tolerate a genius like you maturing. Now, in Li Aoqiong's eyes, Su Luo was already like a dead person. As a result, his expression naturally carried a trace of regret. It's a pity. A genius like you is about to die. While speaking, a cynical sneer flashed across Li Aoqiong's expression. Su Luo, since it was you who smashed me into the 9th rank, then, in order to honor you, I will send you off with the strongest attack at the 9th rank. This way, you shouldn't leave behind any regrets, right? Having heard what was said, Su Luo nearly vomited out blood from being infuriated. Using the strongest attack at the 9th rank, this was just taunting her. Okay, if it was not for her, could Li Aoqiong even reach the 9th rank? Within half a year, to continuously get promoted to the 5th rank, this kind of genius, in the entire world, is also someone rarely seen. Su Luo, you originally had a beautiful future, but the Jade Lakesley family cannot tolerate you growing up. Li Aoqiong merely mouthed words of regret. His expression was completely the opposite. Killing an ordinary person was unlikely to bring him this kind of feeling of joy from killing an exceptional genius. The corner of Li Aoqiong's mouth hooked into a fiercely sinister, sarcastic smile. His palm was slowly placed at his chest. The surrounding wind automatically moved. Countless amounts of spirit strength rushed towards him, forming into a circular shape that could be seen with the naked eye. Thunderous electric attack, Li Aoqiong roared, between his palm. A sudden golden-colored white light burst forth. In the moment that the golden-colored, thunderous lightning nearly formed, Chapter 688, God Descending from Heaven to Subdue. 4. A kind of extremely strong spirit force exploded and shot out, enveloping Li Aoqiong's entire body. The him right now was apathetic and icily arrogant, like a demon standing between heaven and earth. His entire body was filled with a terrifying murderous air. That kind of breath of darkness was simply terrifying to the extreme. It was as if it would directly rush into a person's body to reach the depths of a person's soul, making a person unable to even have thoughts of resistance. This was a real expert. This was the result of a 9th-ranked expert's spirit force mixed with a mentally well-combined powerful attack. Even if the mental force was stronger than Su Luo's, shocked thoughts still flashed through her heart. No choice but to crush the jade piece. Su Luo's dark red pupils stared fixedly at Li Aoqiong. Her hand tightly gripped that jade piece that was penetrated with a white color. Even though she still hadn't finished studying the great dimensional imprint, but now, she was already at death's door. It's still more important to survive. If she even lost her life, what's there to say about cultivation? Although it was very regretful, however, this time, it was the correct choice. Su Luo's heart hardened, and she used all her strength to crush that nearly transparent jade piece. However, a second later, her eyes opened wide until it was perfectly round. She wished she could directly throw the jade piece out and smash it. Now, if it was possible for Su Luo, she really wanted to choke the little adorable puppy's formidable father to death. What kind of fucking scam was this? When she pressed down on this jade piece, wanting to crush it, she discovered that, no matter what, she couldn't crush it. In her mind, a cunning and coldly detached voice said one sentence. If you haven't finished studying it, you can't crush it. What was called to make things even worse in a bad situation, perfectly describing Su Luo, who was out of luck. Now, Su Luo's face was as wrinkled as a bitter melon, whereas Li Aoqiong's formidable attack seemed to arrive in the blink of an eye. That stream after stream of thunderous lightning seemed as if it would rent the sky apart. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived in front of Su Luo. At this moment, Su Luo's eyes could only see an ocean of thunderous lightning. The frantic, surging, thunderous lightning flickered with an incomparably gorgeous radiance, but also carried a powerful attack power that made a person's heart palpitate. It revolved around Su Luo's delicate neck in many loops. Su Luo was unable to ward it off. Sister-in-law Bei Qining had rushed after her to come upon this scene. Immediately, he stumbled on the next step, nearly falling to the ground. He was still too far away, rushing towards Su Luo anxiously and desperately. Finished. Sister-in-law was about to be charred. When Nangong Luyun returned, they absolutely would also be placed in a stove and burned to ash. Sister-in-law. At this moment, Lan Xian was also rushing towards Su Lu like a launched artillery. His eyes burst out with chilliness and alarm. He vowed, if something was to really happen to Su Luo, he will certainly kill his way to the Jade Lakesley family. The little divine dragon's eyes that were always drowsy and perplexed, now, was already moist. His eyes exploded with blood-red rays of hatred. Awoo. The little divine dragon's howls were filled with pain. That band after band of thunderous lightning bound tightly around Su Luo's slender neck, winding together loop after loop. Was he just tormenting her, to simply strangle her to death slowly? Su Luo could only feel her neck hurt until she was about to pass out. Her neck that was being strangled was in extreme pain. Her face turned red, with her head spinning dizzily. At any time, she might die. Awoo! The little divine dragon faced skyward and howled madly. His body was like a spring as he shot towards Li Aoqiong. He aimed at Li Aoqiong's calf and heavily bit down. The little divine dragon's unpredictable, strange speed was very fast, but now, Li Aoqiong was really too strong. So, he was able to capture the little divine dragon in one grab. If you don't want the Jade Lakesley family to disappear from this continent, then release him. Su Luo's ice-cold eyes stared fixedly at Li Aoqiong. Loathsome girl, with death near at hand. You still dare to threaten me, courting death. Li Aoqiong added more strength to his thunderous lightning dragon-like serpent. Immediately, Su Luo was in so much pain that she let out a moan. Chapter 689. God descending from heaven to subdue. 5. Now, her complexion was deep red from being strangled. The veins in her eyes were red and bursting out. She was in so much pain that she wished she could die. Let him go. Su Luo pointed to the little divine dragon. With breaks between words, she continued, he is not a dog, is dragon. Because Su Luo was being strangled, her words were not clear, but Li Aoqiong heard it loud and clear. Dragon? With one hand, he lifted the little divine dragon by the nape and slapped his little but that was sticking out. Just this puppy, you are telling me he is a dragon? Su Luo, is there anyone that would try to fool someone like this? You really think that I am a fucking moron? Su Luo, now, was deeply regretful. If she had known earlier, she would have allowed the little divine dragon to change to his real form. That way, Li Aoqiong would not move against the little divine dragon. After all, the dragon race's strength was tyrannical. Their fame for their fighting prowess had spread far and wide. In addition, they were extremely sensitive about losing face and covering up their errors. The entire continent had a natural reverence for the dragon race. Li Aoqiong pinched the little divine dragon's neck, adding more strength to his hands. The little divine dragon, who was still in his infant period, was pinched until his pink tongue extended out. Loathsome girl, Take a last glance at this world, because you are about to depart from it for eternity. Li Aoqiong laughed sinisterly. Not only did he increase the strength in his hand, the thunderous lightning wrapping around Su Luo's neck also tightened at the same time. Luo Luo, sister-in-law Bei Qining, and Lan Xian's face all had an expression of despair. Will I die just like this? Su Luo's heart was strongly unreconciled to this. She really didn't want to die. She still had many things she wanted to do, especially with regards to Nangong. Last time, she promised him she would go seek Grandmaster Rong Yun to be his disciple to cure the illness in his legs. How could she just die like this? If Nangong discovered news of her death after coming out from closed-door cultivation, how sad would he be? At that time, who could comfort him? The outer corner of her eyes inexplicably started to moisten. The thunderous lightning around her neck became ever more tighter and tighter. Fuzzy images started to appear before Su Luo's eyes, her consciousness gradually becoming less clear, the feeling of being choked becoming more and more serious. But suddenly, Bei Qining stopped and stared blankly. Lan Xian was even more so. He used all his strength to rub his eyes. His entire person stayed still, completely stupefied. Behind them, On Ye Ming, who was rushing here, also halted his footsteps. With an incredulous expression, he watched the stunning scene in front of him. What is going on? Bei Qining and Lan Xian exchanged a look. An outrageously stunned expression was in both of their eyes. The thunderous lightning snakes that were flaming originally had danced arrogantly around Su Luo's neck, coiling around her loop after loop. But at this moment, these flaming snakes seemed to be frozen. They were motionless and rigid. It was not only this. Within the surrounding area around Su Luo and Li Aoqiong, it seemed as if space-time stood still. The two people seemed to be fixed in place. It was not only limited to them. The surrounding flowers, plants, and trees, the burning branches, were all standing still, unmoving. The surroundings were dreadfully quiet. On Li Aoqiong's face was a terrified and shocked expression that never existed before. Now, from the eastern sky, came a slight fluctuation in spirit force. Even though it was subtle, it still gave everyone an intense kind of shocked feeling. Afterwards, in midair, were three figures, with one in front and two behind. It was headed by a person no more than 20 years old. He was dressed in a gorgeous, white, embroidered robe, fine jet black hair pouring down in torrents. The outline of his facial features was extremely refined and gorgeous. He stood there with hands behind his back, shallow phoenix eyes narrowed slightly, like the cherry blossoms in April, resplendent and apathetic. His appearance had a faint, alienating expression. That slightly sweeping glance was like standing above the clouds and looking down at the mass of common people. This kind of noble and domineering king-like expert always made one feel as if they dared not to look at him straight on, with their hearts feeling intimidated by fear. The two people behind him were clearly chamberlains, but even though they were chamberlains, Chapter 690, God Descending from Heaven to Subdue. 6. Even though they were chamberlains, they were still considered extraordinarily handsome and smart-looking. Their manners were not inferior to the sons of influential families. One could only see that person wave his sleeves, and the originally immobilized space immediately regained its motion. Seeing the person in front of him, Li Aoqiong's entire person went into a trembling state. He immediately bowed and made his salutations. Rong, Grandmaster Rong Yun, Grandmaster Rong Yun? Bei Qining, them three, exchanged a look of dismay. This person was the rumored sole Grandmaster-level apothecary on the continent, Grandmaster Rong Yun? Li Aoqiong, right? Grandmaster Rong Yun shot him a slight glance, his expression still indifferent. Now, Grandmaster Rong Yun was unhurriedly walking in the sky towards the ground. Bei Qining and them had simply become stupefied from watching. Reaching the 9th rank and walking in the sky was not difficult. Li Aoqiong had done it. But this kind of leisurely strolling in the hall, kind of step by step, seemingly walking downstairs, was very few. What kind of level of control over space and speed was this, to step down like this from the sky? In front of Grandmaster Rong Yun, the originally rampant and insufferably arrogant Li Aoqiong was suddenly like a rat having seen a cat, becoming spiritless. Yes, this subject is Li Aoqiong. He respectfully kneeled down on one knee, giving Grandmaster Rong Yun an esteemed salute. Grandmaster Rong Yun's godlike phoenix eyes opened slightly, with eyes that were as clear and glossy as seawater. But his expression was incomparably indifferent. All of a sudden, his sleeves rose, casually as if sweeping away dust. It moved back and forth. Slam, 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 slam. Li Aoqiong's chest received 6 palm hits in succession. His body immediately flew back and away, very fiercely smacking into the sheer cliffs on the side. Such a formidable backward force pushed Li Aoqiong deep inside the cliff, forming a deep, human-shaped pit. Now, because Li Aoqiong was hit until he flew out, Su Luo and the little divine dragon escaped his clutches. They sat on the ground, grasping big breaths of air. Since the appearance of Grandmaster Rong Yun, his attention seemed to be focused entirely on Li Aoqiong. Now, Li Aoqiong, who was sent flying, shakily and falteringly crawled out from the deep hole his own body created. At this moment, his head and face was covered in blood. The clothing on his back had already been worn down until it was destroyed, revealing a back that was drenched in blood. His entire person cut a very sorry figure indeed. Wherefore would he still have that rampant and insufferably arrogant appearance from before? Su Luo hugged the little divine dragon, unmovingly standing on the side to fixedly watch Grandmaster Rong Yun's actions. Just now, when Grandmaster Rong Yun acted, time and space completely stood still. This clearly was something only a space mage could control. Could it be Grandmaster Rong Yun was also a space element mage? Grandmaster Rong Yun, from start to finish, didn't even glance at Su Luo, his cold, indifferent gaze sweeping past Li Aoqiong. Li Aoqiong was extremely furious in his heart. He completely did not know where he had offended this enigmatic and huge character. However, no matter what, he could not afford to offend Grandmaster Rong Yun. Not only him, even the Jade Lakesley family could not afford to offend this kind of huge character. Li Aoqiong, with great difficulty, resisted the anger in his heart. He was covered in dirt as he slowly walked towards Grandmaster Rong Yun. However, before he could get near, Grandmaster Rong Yun slapped another 6 palm strikes towards him. Slam, 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 slam. The violent slapping sounds resounded non-stop. The surroundings were dreadfully quiet. This sound landing in Su Luo and others' ears gave them a feeling of their hair standing on ends. As expected, this time, Li Aoqiong was again sent flying. His hard back once again contributed a deep pit on these sheer cliffs. Li Aoqiong, who once again crawled out, was simply so depressed that he nearly vomited blood. Had Grandmaster Rong Yun gone mad? Without saying a word, only determined his identity and directly slapped him until he was sent flying again and again? If it was not for the fact that he was now already 9th rank, he would have already been slapped into mincemeat by this great master. Chapter 691. God Descending from Heaven to Subdue. 7. Li Aoqiong originally had always been a proud and arrogant lord. It's very normal for his heart not to accept this. With his teeth clenched, he walked towards Grandmaster Rong Yun. Before getting closer, he was already glaring at Grandmaster Rong Yun. May I ask why would Great Master hit me? Even if I were to die, I also ask that you let me die knowing. Li Aoqiong spit a mouthful of blood to the floor with a poo sound. Grandmaster Rong Yun, with hands linked behind his back, his cultured and refined manner had a touch of summer warmth. Merely, his appearance seemed indifferent. Just now, what did you do? In the next moment, Li Aoqiong glared at Su Luo. Don't tell me this loathsome girl was a relative of Grandmaster Rong Yun? Was Grandmaster standing up for her? Thinking up to here, Li Aoqiong's eyebrows wrinkled tightly, pointed to Su Luo and said, "Who we Jade Lakesley family want to kill shouldn't still need Grandmaster Rong Yun's approval, right?" Unexpectedly, now, Grandmaster Rong Yun's forehead started to knot slightly. Your Li family wants to kill it? Then, the it in Grandmaster Rong Yun's mouth clearly was not the same person as the her in Li Aoqiong's mouth. 1. However, it was obvious that Li Aoqiong didn't seem to know. Yes, she is a person my Jade Lakesley family must kill. I must still ask that great master don't meddle in others' business. Li Aoqiong bit his teeth, keeping the fear in his heart under control, stuck out his neck and loudly replied. Grandmaster used a gaze that was as if seeing an idiot to look at him, and he casually said 3 words. You deserve death. Grandmaster Rong Yun maintained a letting him die knowing notion and actively told him the truth. If the little divine dragon was choked to death by you, this entire piece of blue sky continent will be a place that sinks into eternal damnation. Compared to this, then I'll just sacrifice you. Little divine dragon? Li Aoqiong's eyes opened wide, staring fixedly at Grandmaster Rong Yun. Where is the little divine dragon? How could our Jade Lakesley family chase to kill the little divine dragon? Great master, you are joking. The dragon race reproduced very slowly, therefore, they treasured little dragons to the extreme. Not to mention, the little divine dragon was the king among the dragon race. According to the dragon race's extreme temper and love of covering up errors, who would dare to chase to kill a little divine dragon? Probably someone tired of living? His Jade Lakesley family was not this stupid. Grandmaster Rong Yun did not speak. His finger pointed towards the little puppy buried in Su Luo's embrace. The little puppy, after being rescued, his first reaction was to leap into Su Luo's embrace. His 2 little paws grabbed onto her clothing very tightly, with large tears in his eyes as he huddled in her embrace. Since Grandmaster Rong Yun's appearance, this timid and adorably foolish little divine dragon, only then, would stretch out his little head to explore. His perplexed and innocent gaze continuously sized up Grandmaster Rong Yun. Based on the dragon race's instincts, he could feel that pure and clean spirit power on Grandmaster Rong Yun's body. So clean like the ice and snow on the snow fields atop a plateau, not polluted with a speck of dust. Now, seeing that Grandmaster Rong Yun had pointed to him, the little divine dragon went along and nodded his little head, admitting he was the dragon race's little king. Just this little puppy? This is impossible. Li Aoqiong completely did not believe it, but his brain paused slightly. He remembered what Su Luo had said before when she was nearly strangled to death. She said this spirit pet was not a puppy, rather, it was a little divine dragon. At that time, Su Luo was a person nearing death. Was this the so-called? The words of a man on his deathbed always comes from the heart. Perhaps she didn't deceive him? The more Li Aoqiong thought, the more his heart was uneasy. He apprehensively stared at the little divine dragon. Since it is a misunderstanding, then this matter, Li Aoqiong, seeing this matter was already not good for him, immediately decided to make a gesture of respect and leave. However, before he could say words of goodbye, Grandmaster Rong Yun coldly humphed and said a sentence. Too late. Too late? Li Aoqiong's eyes contracted. He still hadn't realized what's going on, and felt things shifted before his eyes, when he could see again one. The Chinese she/it is pronounced the same, but written differently. Therefore, this sentence makes more sense in Chinese. Both Li Aoqiong and Rong Yun said she/it. Li Aoqiong was referring to Su Luo using the she, while Rong Yun used the ge, referring to the little divine dragon. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.